Oh my god. Okay. What is my stream title? I think we're good. Oh, we're live. Okay. We're live.
Surprise.
Oh no. That is not. Okay. That should fix that. Everything's all like I just started and everything's already falling apart.
Yeah, that's evil.
I can listen to my rickety old chair. Okay. Now we just gotta wait for the people to show up. That's always exciting. I have like no game sale. How's my game sales so quiet? I should fix that. Okay, that'll work. Oh yeah, I gotta do. Are we talking about specifically MMOs for today, or is it in general?
Just we can say in general. I mean, obviously my focus is on MMOs because that's what I have the most experience with. But I also have some experience with mobile games and social network games and whatnot as well.
Where's my sticky note? There it is. Okay. Oh, we have viewers. Oh no, I'm scared.
Okay.
It's a pumpkin.
I have to all professional stuff.
Professional.
Ish.
Do you know me?
Not
No.
really. I don't.
Well played. Okay. Hi, Pumpkin. How are you? We're just getting set up. And stuff.
I did send out the information on Twitter, so get a few stragglers who noticed their Twitter feeds. We can do the boring stuff now. What are we running first, and what should I bring?
I guess we can run Derelict if you want to do that.
Do you want to run Derelict?
Huh?
Sure. Who's bringing what?
I'll bring Haro. Intermittently at the ophthalmologist. Ophthalmologist.
Ophthalmologist at the eye doctor.
I realize this now. I had to look it up.
Yeah. It's fine. You don't have to be smart to host a podcast, I guess.
If that was a never mind. I was gonna get really mean.
Wow. Rude.
I know. I'm the worst. Hey, I sent you a squad invite.
Did you?
Rude.
No. Guess I should accept that one up.
I guess.
So what are we running first? What should I bring?
I figure we were gonna do some ODS.
Should I bring should I bring my Supra? Should I bring my
Let's it's gonna be infested no matter what we do, so.
yeah.
That's no problem, Dejaro. Welcome to the stream for while we got you.
Could bring my Ignis. I could bring my Amprex.
I'm bringing my Ignis on Haro.
Yeah.
It's gonna end interestingly. And we'll be getting into the podcast shortly. We're just kind of derping around for a minute.
Yeah.
I'll be back. I need tissue real fast.
Sure.
Gun. Foundry has items for you, operator.
Okay. I am better. Maybe. I'm not sure yet.
As long as you're not any worse, I don't think we can tolerate that.
I'll mute my mic if it gets worse, I promise. Probably. Okay. So okay, let's get started a little bit. I think we've drifted around enough. I mean, the entire stream's gonna be us derping out. You know what? Never mind. So, today we're going to be talking about the social design of online games. I guess it could be any games, or all games, but I think online's the most applicable. So the social design is. Oh wait, do we want this to be squad only?
Yes.
Yeah. Friends only. So oh my god. I have such a hard time trying to clip highlights because we always start saying something and then stop. And then go on a tangent for 5 minutes. I'm like, how do I clip this? So
You just accept it in its full glory.
I guess so. So the social design of games is basically the philosophy and design that goes into encouraging players to interact with each other in an online setting or in an online game setting. Forgot to mute my mic, sorry. So it's kind of interesting to look at, like MMOs in particular, through that perspective, because it's the social design of these games have changed so much in more recent game releases.
Right. Well, and the games in the last, essentially since World of Warcraft have been different than, at least MMOs have been different than the ones that came before that.
Right. So I guess the best place to start would be to talk about the OG MMOs, or the OG online games, and how they encouraged people to collaborate with each other, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Right. I mean, my own experience with text mods was that, it just kind of happened organically. Like some people wanted to solo and go farm things on their own. Some people wanted to group together. Almost every MUD I can think of had a party system where you could invite people to parties and go fight stuff. um, the
Which I need to play a mud so I can understand how it works. I've never
Right.
played one before, and it's like one of those things. I've always grown up people talking about muds and how amazing they were, and this that, and the other. I'm like, I really need to just sit down and try one out just to understand it.
Right. Keeping in mind that it's like saying, "Oh, I need to go play World of Warcraft in order to understand it." Well, World of Warcraft that you get today is going to be different than World of Warcraft that existed a decade ago.
Oh,
But,
sorry. Continue.
you
I just I need to do a thing real fast because. Continue, please.
um. Yeah. So basically, pretty much every game had kind of a party system, and going back to Bartle's four types, he recognized that one of the motivations was a socializer motivation, people who kind of wanted to chat. Um, part of the difficulty, with that though is, of course, is that the internet has plenty of ways to kind of cater to people who just want to chat. Facebook chat or Facebook chat. Back in the day we had IM programs. Uh, you know, comments on blogs. Talking on Twitter. So it's kind of difficult for a game to really kind of like be able to provide a unique experience, or an experience that that caters specifically to the social player. Um, Basically, generally what you get is you get the type of people who like the game but also want to be social, and so they'll basically be social in the context of the game. And that's kind of and Bartle talks about this in his paper. Like that's generally what you want to focus on. Then is ways you can kind of like let players um, feel like they have, give players the context to chat with other people in the game. Like the game is essentially the topic that helps people socialize.
And
Oh
that's
hey,
good.
right. Oh, yeah, oh hey, did you hear this guild got a world first? Or oh hey, have you heard about the nerfs coming down the line? Or did you watch the dev stream? Um, there's a lot of kind of subtleties like that that make make a game appealing to a socializer more than just it being a glorified chat program.
Right, and that does make it somewhat interesting because you think of you mentioned world firsts, and I remember playing Warcraft, and when someone gets a world first achievement, like I say like a lot, and I hate myself for it.
Hmm.
It spams it across everyone's chat. This person just got world first,
Right.
uh, 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 I forget what I was online for that. I think it was Ice Crown Citadel. World first Ice Crown Citadel, and it tells everybody just like, hey, here's something to talk about. Here's a thing that
Right.
happened.
And a lot of that is catering to um, the achiever mindset.
Hmm.
Basically, like you're giving, that's intended to give people recognition for, having such mastery of the game that they're able to get this thing before anybody else, at least on that server.
And gives the player, it kind of encourages like a almost competitive edge. Be like, why don't you try to get the next?
Right. But yeah, this does give people kind of like something to wag their tongues about, or even if it's something along the lines of, oh well, his guild did this for him, or
Got
it wasn't
carried.
just Right, it wasn't just one person. It was like, I remember like one time there was, it was like some, I think it was like, first person to hit max level, then new expansion. People were talking about like, oh, it was a group of people basically all, like 5 people kind of like passed off playing the character, so they were able to complete play. So the character's online continuously for the however much time it was. Essentially like
That's
a normal person would have had to stay up for 3 days straight, but because there's a number of people playing the same character,
that sounds like an episode of Dot Hack Sign.
possible.
that was a thing that they that's the other thing. You have to give that show a little bit of props because they were able to make a portrayal of like online MMOs before online MMOs, graphical MMOs were really popular.
Well, I think there were graphical novels before it, so I think it's they. I think it gets a lot of interesting. It gets a lot of things very interesting. It does a lot of things very interesting. Gets some stuff wrong. Gets some stuff right.
Right. And well, it was made in '95, I want to say. So it was pretty early, is all I was trying to say.
But Ultima Online had launched by that point, so
Oh, and Dejara says the game gives shared neutral context like sports talk in an office.
Right. Exactly. It basically gives you that kind of like common ground for people to talk about, because obviously people are going to be interested in it. If they sign up for the game, then people are going to be interested in that. And even if the socializers and the person doing the hardcore raids or having a billion ults all up to impossible high level, you can assume that they have some interest in the game, whether it's on a gameplay level or a lore level or whatnot. I mean, I've run into this a bit when I played Final Fantasy, where people love the Final Fantasy lore, and so a lot of what they did, a lot of times, like just kind of sitting and chatting with someone about lore. I mean, like in Mitternacht and I did that a lot of times, just kind of sat around talking about the lore and the implications of it, and so it gives you that context, and that's why that's why the game is potentially more interesting than just a Facebook chat or whatnot.
Right. And so it's interesting though how the social aspects of MMOs in particular have changed over time, where before World of Warcraft, let's just use that as our threshold. In order to get like a group for a piece of content, you'd have to basically spam whatever chat channel that allowed it to find people to run that content.
Or people would join guilds with the expressed interest of these people are going to be the type of people that will want to run the type of content I want to run, whether it's raiding or dungeons or just sitting around and leveling up and shooting the shit. Like a lot of times the guilds were a very fundamental. I mean, I think they still are a very fundamental part of the MMO experience. Because it basically gives people, people who have kind of like-minded goals a chance to kind of, get together and be readily available. And I think that the nature of guilds have shifted. It's kind of an interesting social design issue because in early games, EverQuest and Ultima Online and whatnot, like it was really kind of brutally hard for you to do anything in the world. In Ultima Online because you'd get killed, and EverQuest 1 because it was just a tough game. It kind of intended to require you to group. This is kind of one of the biggest departures it had from text mods, where the text mods generally you were able to solo it to some extent, at least. Um, but yeah, but now guilds have become a lot more of a
Life support on the way.
system, I guess.
yeah, I mean, gameplay system, or like even I don't know if this is the right word, but like optional, where like you like in EverQuest 1, you were really kind of hindering yourself if you didn't find a guild to join. Um,
It depends game to game, but I'd say in some games it's been made requirement for certain things
Another
that
life
well, I
may
mean,
not necessarily be running content, but to have, like in modern World of Warcraft, you have to be in a guild to get certain heirloom pieces, for example.
right, right. Well, I mean, like, and I think like World of Warcraft. Um, I want to say it was one, maybe not the first, but it was definitely an early game. They started adding gameplay aspects to social groups like guilds,
Hmm.
um, where you, basically where you could level up a guild, and you got bonuses for being in the guild.
I would say that Star Wars Galaxies was one of the first games to it indirectly have that, because you'd have your guild cities would
Right,
level up, and then that would determine what was available for the city.
right,
But that required contributions from the guild that ran it.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, it kind of blurred the lines there, but like I would say, kind of in my estimation, I would say that was more of a feature of the cities, that happened. They were basically kind of focused around guilds, not too surprisingly.
Hmm.
Rather than it being kind of a guild feature, specifically, because the cities were kind of intended to help fill out the planets.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like and so like the World of Warcraft and a lot of other games are kind of like they basically put more gameplay encouragement, at least, for people to join a guild. Whereas in EverQuest, like the number of people who didn't want to join a guild was pretty small. Um, and like like one of the reasons why this is kind of important is 'cause I know a lot of people kind of get a little touchy about this subject, about wanting to be free to solo as much as they want. From a developer point of view, the reason why this matters is because you want, um, you know, people get kind of bound to a game by the social fabric. Um, I played Final Fantasy 14 for a long time because of the people I know. Like Mitternacht. When I played, I had, I'd made a bunch of pretty good friends in the game as well. And so the friendship kind of kept me in the game.
Hmm.
And even like World of Warcraft to some extent, because I played with a bunch of people I knew offline. It just it's at certain points it kind of got to the point where I was like, well, I'm not so interested in the game anymore. I'm gonna take a break. But I came back because my friends were playing. My friends were interested in doing it. So
Right. And the when I quit WoW, before I played it again more recently, I quit because my guild, the raiding guild I was in, kind of fell apart over some drama, and I couldn't find another guild that I meshed with as well. Even though I
right.
even though I left it to stay with the friends I was really close with, like none of us. I keep saying like, geez, I need to fix myself. Need to reprogram my brain. We weren't able to find a guild that would facilitate us all to be able to do raids together. Because
right.
the guilds that we went to would be like, oh yeah, we need this person and this person, but we don't need a third person. And just be like,
Right.
well, then,
No, we're kind of a package deal.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times that's the hard part of like a lot of social design, is that a lot of what goes on is completely beyond the control of the designer, um, or it's like a second or third order effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They can only set
Yeah.
down the foundation to facilitate for what becomes
Right.
the social play.
right, right. And so, like in that sort of, in that kind of, I mean, I think there's like designers can do a lot more things to encourage social play, but I think in particular, um, uh, like like World of Warcraft's rating, in particular, was very interesting where um, it was limited by a strict upper bounds, an idea that kind of allowed it to them to balance the encounters better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because in original EverQuest, where there was hardly any instancing, um, raids were kind of out in the open, and people would go and kill things, and you could bring as many people as you wanted to.
Right, like world boss hunting type stuff.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, essentially, yeah, like basically all raids in original EverQuest were world bosses. And so like a big as the so World of Warcraft, like having limits on the number of people that can go on a raid was potentially good for gameplay because they can basically tweak and tune the gameplay better.
Mm-hmm.
They could not do this without you.
But on the flip side, it also created a situation where, like what you just said, like a raiding guild might have no use for the third person in a group of 3 people. They might not want to put up with what they consider dead weight, in order to get these 2 people that they really want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in the original EverQuest, it's like, sure, come along, but behind the scenes, it's probably like, you're not gonna get the you're not gonna get the prime goodies. We're gonna give it to the people who
The first slaughters.
Right.
That actually does remind me of Star Wars Galaxies a bit. Because you're talking about overworld raids and stuff, and Star Wars Galaxies was very much made in the same vein.
Right.
But it made me think of Death Watch Bunker, which was like the only true raid in the base game
Right.
that I can think of. Why am I not generating energy? That's so weird. And the Death Watch Bunker was how you got the super, super, super hard stuff. You'd go in there and you'd fight the Black Sun faction. And all Black Sun NPCs have a chance of dropping jetpack components. And the jetpack was the absolute rarest and most versatile mount in the game. Because it was the only elevated mount, so it could actually traverse over obstacles. Everything else had to go around obstacles, like fences or small walls, for example.
Right.
While the jetpack could just fly over because it was elevated off the the ground map. And it was a huge thing. There were so many obstacles in the game world.
Right.
But
And also it was rare, so it was kind of a prestige thing. So.
oh, absolutely. And I had one for a while. I love that thing so much. I borrowed it from my guild leader and I gave it back eventually after a year.
Right.
But I was always afraid to use it because I was always afraid it was going to blow up on me. Because mounts in Star Wars Galaxies had health pools. And if you got attacked by mobs, there was a chance that the mobs could attack your mounts instead of you. So, I mean, there were ways to repair them. They're just expensive. So eventually I just got to the point where I was terrified to use it outside of like the the city planets,
Right.
because everything outside the city planets was super high level.
For the tenor.
And but so the mobs inside Death, but so the components to make the jetpack it required the base, the fuselage, and the engine, I want to say, or turbine or whatever.
Right.
And then yeah, I think it was just the three. And so all Black Sun mobs had a chance to drop this. And there were Black Sun mobs on a number of planets. But the ones inside Deathwatch Bunker had a higher % chance to drop them.
Right.
And I think it was
the
the base that was the rare drop, and it was a rare drop. I never saw one drop my entire time playing that game. And I'd farm those guys at least weekly.
Right.
And also, you had to use Deathwatch Bunker to make Mandalorian armor, which was Boba Fett's armor.
Right.
Which, again, super prestige armor. But it was only wearable by bounty hunters, I want to say, which, I mean, kind of makes sense.
Right.
And this is where Deathwatch Bunker is hard. Like, you could go in with a full, combat group and, just kill stuff. And that was hard alone. But in order to craft the Mandalorian armor, you actually had to escort a crafter into the Deathwatch Bunker. And crafters were their own classes. And they had no combat skills whatsoever.
Right.
And you had to get to the heart of the raid, the heart of the bunker, to the crafting benches, where the crafter could actually build the armor.
Right. And so it basically kind of made the whole thing a lot more epic because you had essentially, that's a very social experience. You kind of organizing it and cooperating, coordinating. And this goes back even pretty early in the game too. Because you kind of have to. Someone has to be the crafter or have a crafter role or whatnot.
And they have to be a good crafter, because back then crafting wasn't just click a couple buttons and bing boom bang, there you're done. It was a process, a menu, like there'd be menu mini games practically where you had to prototype the item and have all the right stats to do it and get your entertainer buff and have the right food buff, and then you'd have to reverse engineer it to refine the stat values. It was a process, and if you had a bad crafter, that's a waste of materials that you just spent hundreds of millions of credits on.
Right. Or even if the crafter just simply got unlucky
and but that's a so one of the things that I do notice with more modern MMOs though is that they tend to be a little less sociable. Like they almost have antisocial facilities.
I mean, it's somewhat. I mean, like
for the sake of convenience, I think would be the.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about when we talked about the Bartle groups. It's like, the modern MMOs have this complete fixation on the achiever, and so like a lot of the game design is how can we emphasize achievement better in this game. And how can we cater to achievers? And this comes through in efficiency. Like how can we present the player with efficient ways to accomplish their goals, and expect them to expect them to basically kind of like to go and
how to get their
follow up
loots
on
better.
Right. Get the loot better, get levels better. Yeah, like whatever it is they need to do in order to kind of demonstrate mastery of the game, including preparing for raids. That's what the game kind of focuses on. Focus on giving to the player so that the achiever.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, like things like social interaction is seen as an obstacle. It's seen as as an undesirable thing that kind of like hampers achievement.
And like the biggest thing that comes to mind is Dungeon Finder.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that like a lot of people when that came out kind of like walking dungeon.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
It's one of the things people lamented when Dungeon Finder came out. World of Warcraft, like, but I like walking to the dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
I like going and doing like doing this part. I like finding people. Because this was kind of an aspect that was very social, but then you take that away, and like again, like it makes sense for Warcraft to have a dungeon finder because that's the core of the game. That's what the game is there for now. Is basically this idea of running dungeons and leveling up and getting loot so you can go hit the harder dungeon.
Right.
We will all share in this bounty.
And so,
As long as you can.
so you very much you get this mindset that there needs to be this efficiency in order to let people level up faster and better. Because in a lot of other games you had these inefficiencies that tended to make the game a lot more interesting. At least from a socialization point of view, like EverQuest is really hard to solo a lot of monsters unless you played very specific classes very skillfully.
Mm-hmm.
You needed to find a group, and so you either kind of stood around and tried to find a group, which gave you investment into the group. Then when you want to stay with the group, and if you found people who are competent, you had the motivation to try to kind of keep in touch with them. So that next time you're on, it's like, oh hey, it's Bob. I remember Bob. Bob is really good. I'm gonna see if Bob is around and wants to help.
Yeah, and then there's the whole like, oh, we need a healer for our group. Hey, does anyone know a healer? Yeah, I know this guy. He was great last night. Let me see if he's on.
Right. I mean, you still get a little bit of that, obviously. Like I still get that in Final Fantasy 14.
I actually just had that in PlanetSide 2.
I don't romanticize that at all. Having played Final Fantasy 11 and sat trying to find a group for, I think, 12 hours one time.
Oh yeah, I'll totally agree with that side too.
I think it's less about romanticizing it and more about understanding that there was some benefit to it, despite the pain. I think a lot of design has been focused around let's get rid of the obstacles rather than let's change it to get rid of the bad stuff and try to keep the good stuff.
I mean, I totally understand, and somewhat, and I do agree with what Mitter's perspective is on it. I was recently playing Final Fantasy 11 on a private server, and it's the weirdest thing on that server. Healers are everywhere on that particular server. It's really hard to find a leveling party on White Mage, which is the exact opposite from the retail servers.
Right.
And when I'm on that server, it can take me a couple of hours to actually find a group, and then that group can suck and just be a waste of time.
Right. I wonder if there's kind of more of a mindset of like people being more used to MMOs, being willing to heal more, and kind of the conventional wisdom being that healers are the rare component for the group. So if I play a healer, I'm going to have an easier time getting groups. I
think you're right on that to some degree. That server does allow dual boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So someone can play their main character and then have a
pocket healer. Basically.
Pocket healer. Yeah, I think that is what has a lot to do with it.
I can see that. But going back to Mitternach's point, which I think is important, like a lot of discussions kind of like boil down to this, like somebody kind of accusing other people of trying to romanticize sitting around for hours on end trying to find a group, and then being very committed, basically sticking with that group no matter what, like because I just spent 3 hours trying to find a group, by the gods, I'm gonna get the most out of it I can. Um, like I said, I think I think a lot of modern MMO design has focused on how can we get rid of these what feels like overhead, what feels like obstacles, but kind of like has ignored that there was some good parts of this. The social aspect of the game was really kind of what kept it going. I mean, even now, EverQuest 1 is, I mean, like when Daybreak Games took over, like they didn't close EverQuest 1 down because it wasn't performing. They canceled a lot of other projects, but not EverQuest 1. And so like a game that old obviously has some kind of longevity because it isn't the graphics and it isn't the old style gameplay. I would argue that a lot of it is the social component of it. Like people basically have made such deep social connections in the game because of the way the game was in the early days.
Successful we will be.
Yeah, and same thing with 11.
Right. And so, and like I'm not saying that EverQuest 1 is not is nowhere near as popular as Final Fantasy 11 is nowhere near as popular as World of Warcraft is, obviously. But I think like looking at these mechanics and trying to understand what these mechanics did well and poorly, and then try to kind of like reverse engineer it and say, okay, can we get these connections? Can we do things to facilitate the social connections without it taking 3 hours to find a group in order to go grind monsters? Because I'll fully admit, like, no, I would not play that game myself. Like, I love socialization, but no,
Although I will say it is interesting using the World of Warcraft example. I need to fix my bots. The high end dungeons, the high end current dungeons, mythic plus, I will as they're called, do not have a dungeon finder system. They run off of a party, like the Final Fantasy 14 party finder system, where you kind of list yourself on a list and people have to manually be like, I want to join your party.
right.
I assume I'm always a little confused, like why like 14 and now WoW kind of make this decision to be half and half with their finder systems, where it's just like, oh yeah, you can dungeon finder, use the automated listing finder to join this, but you can only use the the manual search function for the high end stuff. And I've always just been kind of like, I wonder if there's like if they've determined there's a psychological value behind that or what.
I mean, my assumption is that this is an attempt to kind of cater to the elite players.
Right.
Like, give them the ability to kind of like get their world firsts. I mean, and to frankly make the content harder than like a random group of people might be able to handle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pugs are notorious for being kind of terrible.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Surprise. So like when you have this new high-end content, super elite content, it makes sense that like you either need to kind of spend the time to invest to find people, or you more likely you're going to have a group already all ready to go. You're just going to go in with a preform. And then basically the people willing to kind of put the investment in are the ones that are going to do the great things to get the content, the cutting edge content. Because usually like in 14, like they'll open it up to the raid finder, once they kind of nerf it and they start giving people echo, as far as I know. So
Yeah, it's usually like 3 months after it's been released.
right. And for people who don't play Final Fantasy 14, the echo is basically the little in-game explanation for why your character is so special, and it manifests in that it'll increase the amount of damage and hit points and healing you do.
Oh yeah, WoW does that too now. So
Oh yeah.
I forget what the buff's called. I think it's heroism.
Right. But yeah, so yeah, and so my kind of trying to reverse engineer that design. I think it's probably an attempt to kind of cater to the people who do the high-end rating stuff, who want it to feel special. Because I mean, if you're in a rating guild and because you're in a rating guild and you basically have.
I was all tapped.
I'm just gonna respawn. But if if you're in a raiding guild and you have the new dungeon, you can basically kind of grab grab your raiding guild friends to go run the content. It's going to feel better than if you were you were just kind of you knowing that other people can just kind of click a button and get into the raid.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they have no earthly chance of actually being able to do the raid because pugs can't execute on the mechanics as well. So it kind of gives a little bit of prestige to the people, and there's a lot of the rating is generally catered to for two reasons, because these are your hardcore 1% word of mouth people who spread the game word of mouth. And the other thing is too is it's basically what's called aspirational. People will see the raiders walking around in the raid gear and being all cool and being all flashy with their stuff, and people are oh, I want to be like that when I
grow up.
Right. And raiders don't pay anything more per month than other people do, but they're gonna potentially play the game much longer because they have that connect. Because raiding itself is a very social activity.
Mm-hmm.
But social in a way that raiders have accepted.
But so for I mentioned my little social activity today on PlanetSide 2 that I was actually very proud of. I just randomly jumped in a guy's Jeep, and because he was just there, he drove by and he stopped right in front of me as I'm running across this battlefield. I'm like, okay, I'll jump in his car. And I was just in the back seat as an engineer, which the engineers repair the vehicles and the mech suits. And when you're in the back seat of that particular car, an engineer can repair the car while it's driving.
Right.
Not as efficiently as if they were out of it, but they can still use a repair gun. And he's just driving around like a maniac. He's got a gunner in the turret, and we're just going to town. He's killing all the guys.
Right.
He's just driving into the enemy team, and just getting us out somewhere. And I'm just here with my little gun. Yeah! Just crying the entire time. He's like, oh my god, we're gonna die.
Right.
And we're just working as a well-oiled team. Never met before, don't know each other's playstyle, but we're just tearing this stuff up. And once we finally die, he sends me a friend request. He's just like, hey, let's do this again some other time. I'm logging out for the day though. Right. And that's the first time I've ever actually talked to anyone using tells in that game, other than being yelled at by people calling me a scrub and shit.
Right.
And I've been playing this game since closed beta. I've never actually talked to anybody in this game ever.
Right. Well, you kind of mentioned before about PlanetSide 2 has a very fast time to kill.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really kind of rewards a whole lot of kind of deliberate action. You know, if you're stopping it to type, you're probably dead.
Yeah, you're much. It's one of the few games where people are strongly encouraged to actually use the in-game voice.
Right. Because
And
that is a role it generally sucks in most games.
yeah, the voice chat isn't that bad on PlanetSide 2, and although proximity chat is the worst.
Right.
But they've actually been pretty good about, like, if there's somebody that just has their mic open nonstop, you can just hit, like, enter on the numpad and it'll mute whoever is speaking at that moment. Which I'm like, thank you. Like, that was actually a very smart design choice by the developers.
Right. Yeah, and so, like, yeah, like, so certain type of games basically really don't lend themselves very well to social experiences. Yeah, like fast action games like PlanetSide 2 being a good example.
Or Overwatch would be another.
Right. Yeah, like the arena games tend to be kind of terrible. So.
Or since we're speaking of fast-paced action games where social interactions may not be the best thing ever.
League of Legends?
Yeah. hey, that was my setup.
Hey, like, look. You pitch the slow off ball. I'm not gonna wait for you to get in a position to hit the softball. Well. Yeah, I mean, and so like that's, yeah, I mean, like there's been so much stuff written about the really toxic community of League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Like just how terrible it is. And I think it's kind of a combination of the a lot of the kind of what we were talking about, being a pretty fast action game. If you're sitting there trying to type stuff out, you're probably losing. And I think the kind of the flip side too is like in a very competitive game like that, it's very a lot of people are gonna want to shift blame.
Right, because that competitiveness, like, it pumps like the testosterone and it pushes you to a heightened state of adrenaline.
Right.
And
I mean,
people don't get along well when they're in that state of mind.
Right. It's a very kind of it's a game that kind of like stresses you, puts stress on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have people that kind of like not. And like there's been a couple of times too where they kind of like I remember there being articles about this, basically where they would talk to some of the worst offenders and like they were just kind of teenage boys who were like, oh, I didn't know it was inappropriate
to scream you're an F and
right to basically to basically just kind of like unleash on that. Because I mean like internet culture can be very
offensive, abrasive.
Yeah, I mean, it can appear abrasive. I have this kind of theory I read about on my blog once. This idea of bombastic hyperbole.
Oh, okay.
Where a lot of early internet interactions were a lot of early internet interactions where people were kind of trying to figure out how text chat worked. And like one of the things that we kind of know is that text chat is pretty terrible about expressing kind of subtle emotions,
Sarcasm or sass or
right, exactly. And so if looking back on my kind of interactions with the internet back when I was younger, it felt like in order to kind of like rise above kind of the the steady state, like people kind of had to be pretty bombastic. It wasn't just yeah, that's a good point. I disagree with you. Like people had to kind of crank it up, kind of like
no,
to
you're
let them know
stupid.
Right, or die in a fire, or whatever, like
right.
And like other people kind of took that in the vein it was intended. It wasn't like no, literally, I want you to fire. It became it was one of those things like, oh, okay, I get it. Because like I remember being part of a community where like that was it even got abbreviated DIAF,
Mhm.
and so it just became kind of this go-to phrase for saying, hey, I strongly disagree with you.
Yeah, I think it's time to
Um,
extract.
We're heading toward what the go the next 5 minutes. And so but you run into two different problems with that. The first being an outsider looking in. What happens when somebody from the outside looks in and says, "Oh, these people are telling each other they need to die in a fire." Well, that's not very nice. Obviously, the internet's this dehumanizing influence
Right, and
that
that's what happens when
makes
like
people horrible.
live or mainstream media looks at gaming communities and they go, "Oh, well, they're obviously a toxic community," and
Right, right.
or
And,
when they talk about like Grand Theft Auto as an
mm,
example, or a Rockstar in general, they're like, "Oh, this is a misogynistic, abrasive thing," and if you actually
You need to get out of there.
talk to people from Rockstar, they actually have policies for how far they can push content or how offensive they can make their content. And like
right.
none of that is reflected in like their office politics or anything like that because they are, a somewhat respectable company.
All share in this bounty. Hold out as
Or,
long as you can.
as far as gaming companies
Right.
go. Oh,
Right,
Dejara says, "LOL, welcome to EVE Online."
Right. And so yeah, you definitely gotta get this. And so the second problem you have then is like what happens when someone comes into community doesn't understand kind of understand kind of the culture of that community, sees die in a fire, takes that as like, oh, literal. You can kind of almost call this kind of the 4chan effect, where like
Oh boy.
along the lines, like the whole like hyperbolic racism and hatred, was probably someone trying to be ironic, but eventually people are like, oh no, like this is the way everything should be.
Do we want to do another one?
Oh yeah, we can do derelict survival, or we can do you didn't want to pull out reference bundles.
I need to take a short break for sim sickness, so you guys can go ahead.
Okay, I hope you feel better.
I'm good with running something. But yeah, like so you have like kind of like people coming into a community, thinking, taking things earnestly, and then participating as earnest, and they kind of like, uh, and it's kind of tough in that situation because like it's like I guess the kind of the equivalent would be like in joke between friends, like two women who are close friends call each other bitch. Um, that's fine between them, but like somebody on the outside might see that and say, oh, are they hostile to each other? And if somebody else came into their group and then started calling them bitch like they did, like they'd be like, whoa, wait a second.
Hold on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not cool. Oh, but you guys do it to each other. It's like, yeah, no, but you're not part of the group.
Right, and that's kind of the hard thing with like recruiting people to guilds, for example.
Right.
You
Right,
get
right.
someone
Like,
into this little niche environment.
right. Like you have certain behaviors that are okay and understood to be, not taken in earnest. Whether it's calling people names or or kind of like kind of poking fun at people. And then yeah, you have a new person kind of coming in, and it's like, well, yeah, are they joking though? I know Dan over here is kind of cool with it, but Bob over here is kind of taking this a little seriously, like, getting kind of a weird vibe from him. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's not one of those things where it's not necessarily a direct thing either, where it's not necessarily something that's very obvious. Um, and the larger the group you have, kind of the sometimes the harder it is to kind of really make this distinction. especially to outsiders. As outsiders look in.
Okay, sorry. I'm sitting here fiddling with my bots instead of being social. I swear these
Well, I mean,
bots are like the real Twitch raid boss.
Well, I mean, that's kind of another interesting thing about designing social for games is that kind of taking reality into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the reality is like for MMOs, like people aren't always going to be logged on. So how do you kind of maintain a community despite that? Like a lot of times, basically what happened was that a lot of times what would happen is that people would basically figure out ways to kind of extend the community beyond the game.
Mm-hmm.
Discord servers being kind of an obvious thing these days. Allowing people kind of stay in touch with each other and chat with each other. But then you have to come.
What the hell
Get
is
on my
that?
shoulders. I'll carry you.
What the hell is that? I don't even know what. Okay, that was weird.
And then also the fact that people will get distracted too. I know in a lot of games sometimes you'll have big group events and you have so many people chatting that's just really hard to kind of keep up with things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really big in like roleplay servers where roleplay servers will have specific places where everyone knows to go there if you're looking for people to RP with. Like on Final Fantasy 14.
RP pugs.
Yeah. For the great RP raid boss. That is.
Right,
oh,
right.
God, never mind. Oh, God. I was about to start talking shit about someone.
It's not.
Sorry. I forgot we were doing a podcast. My bad.
Yeah, this isn't. It's maybe us just shooting the shit, but it is being recorded.
Yeah. And I'm the one doing the recording. That's the scariest part. It's okay. I'll edit it out in post. It's fine.
Right.
Oh.
And this person. Oh, so how about that sports team?
Yeah.
I have to re-record in post. But yeah, but yeah, and so yeah, or people getting distracted, like you did over there, then I have to do this. It was very interesting, the design of an early in a original EverQuest. Oops, it's my turn to get stupid and eaten.
God, it's so hard to. Did I get you? Okay.
Yeah, I know. You have to really kind of.
Arcwing just needs a little just fine tuning and it'd be fine, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it's kind of the inertial aspect. I want to get to you as fast as possible, and then I have to kind of slow down. I think it doesn't help that this is so different than a lot of the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movement physics and whatnot.
Oh, welcome back, Pumpkin. We're just talking about the social design of games and stuff.
Yeah, and so it's so how do you kind of deal with a lot of design when when kind of real life interferes, even in just oh, sorry, this person's gonna be distracted for a bit.
And although it is interesting to see games starting to acknowledge out of game programs like Discord where people socialize. And now games are trying to implement their own versions of Discord.
Right.
Like Steam. Steam's trying to emulate
Oh.
Discord with their friends list system.
Right.
And God, I still don't use it.
Yeah, Steam chat is it's a
It,
thing.
it's a thing.
obviously-
Yeah.
I don't wanna get too brutal here, but like yeah, it. Well, I mean, and like Steam, yeah, Steam kind of was around during a time when, the era of what we used to call game portals,
Mhm.
where kind of the idea is you want people to be able to kind of be friendly in chat, so that they would stick around and it would basically it was called stickiness, like oh people stay around on the site, you know where the kind of the reality is that like Steam is already good for
Buying games.
right basically yeah
Yeah, like I remember we've talked about Xfire before in the past.
right
And like that was okay. It was okay. But I also remember using what was it? It was game something. Game Spy.
yeah the GameSpy probably
Yeah, that sounds about right. And that would actually be used as a server host as well.
right
But it also had social services, and like you could get like game demos from it, and ooh, there's a scary memory. There's a sorry to go off tangent, but I always find this story fascinating. There's a game that I downloaded a demo for one time, and I cannot remember the name of the game for the life of me, but it was developed. I didn't know this at the time. I found out about this like a year later. But the game it was a Diablo clone.
mm-hmm.
And it was developed by a company that was notoriously known for making viruses and malware.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
And like afterwards, I'm like, oh, is that where those viruses came from?
Right.
And a virus company actually made a Diablo clone to incorporate viral code into their own game.
Right.
And keep the infested.
And I was like, that's like next levels of evil.
Right. Well,
The
it's a
infested
business
are
model.
DC.
And I immediately stopped using GameSpy after that,
Support I'm delivering.
Right,
Only
right.
chance for survival.
because that means they don't vet their
Life support
games that they're
capsules to the
uploading.
Right.
It'll buy you more time.
I think it was called like Fate. I want to say it was called Fate or something like that. I've tried to look for articles for it, but I can't. I have not been able to find that game again.
Yeah.
But it was a big enough thing that they talked about it on you remember X-Play?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they talked about it on that show. I remember. That's how I found out about it.
You can't put two and two together. And, oh, is there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of like it kind of ties back into kind of this idea of a larger community. Back in the day before the internet was this huge thing.
On the way.
You definitely had word of mouth was a very important thing.
Hmm.
In the early internet before it became really commercial, it was kind of the same thing. Like you would get people kind of like recommending things one to another, and like the game, like the game magazines. The game magazines always had kind of a little bit of place here, but the reality is for the most part, a lot of people would basically kind of trust the word of their friend more than whatever the latest game magazine had said. So
And I miss Nintendo Power. Nintendo Power had some great stuff in it.
yeah, well, I mean, Nintendo Power is basically a first party magazine.
Hmm.
Because Nintendo Power is basically run by Nintendo, so yeah, I mean, it had good stuff in it, so I had inside information. It's just like when it came to reviewing games, it may not have been the most unbiased source.
Oh no, like you gotta acknowledge, you know, what you're getting with it, and you know, just kind of understand
Right.
that. Oh, maybe
Right.
the new Mario game, 10 out of 10. Really?
Right. Do they have any ulterior motive for giving it such a good high score? But yeah, so going back to kind of games, you know, like the social design of games, like, you know, I think one of the big problems we've run into is, you know, like exploration is is difficult. Like, you know, trying to kind of figure things out is tricky, and so, like, you know, we run into this situation repeatedly
Another life support capsule is now available.
where people kind of have this attitude of, well, um, I don't want to have to deal with, you know, the overhead, you know, like basically kind of the efficiency, and, like, you know, and you know, like kind of the inability for us to kind of acknowledge that a lot of the old stuff that we used to, you know, have had some good parts to it. Because, like, you know, a lot of times it gets kind of accused of being, you know, romanticizing. Yeah, kind of like what Nadernock said. But I think that, you know, like, I think we could learn a lot from these older games that did a lot of things and try to kind of, like, you know, pick out the good things. I mean, kind of like what a lot of modern games have kind of picked out the good things from, you know, from an achievement point, you know, focused point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare for
But they have they've, you know, kind of had problems, you know, kind of picking out anything besides the achievement focus.
Yeah.
Kind of understanding that that there is some good to be had
From not knowing everything immediately as soon as something releases.
Right, yeah. And
I was just
kind of,
thinking
yeah,
about that.
life support has
yeah. Well, kind of like what we talked about with the explorers, kind of explorer motivation for Bartle. Like a big role of the explorer used to be
Finding the secrets.
and, well, sharing the secrets.
Mhm.
Like, they would find it, but then, like, you know, the achievers kind of wanted to know the secrets because they wanted to, you know, they wanted this information
when you need it. Extraction
to
is ready.
they wanted this information in order to kind of help themselves, you know, do things efficiently. Like, you know, finding the efficient path used to be a pretty major aspect of achiever gameplay. Whereas now, you know, and not necessarily finding themselves, but, you know, potentially finding, you know, information from other people about how to do it. That's actually kind of one of the things I enjoy as an achiever type in modern games, is based, like, how do I achieve this thing I want to do without making myself, you know, sick to death of the game from, you know, feeling like I have to kind of mindlessly grind this thing,
Mm-hmm.
get what I want. And so,
Like figuring out the most efficient means of getting your weekly cap of tomestones in 14
right. I mean, yeah, like,
without killing yourself.
right. I think that, like, the best example I have of this was Lord of the Rings Online.
Additional life support.
The
I
game
actually,
that shall
like-
not be. Never mind.
But I actually had a bunch of alts, and I mastered all the crafting professions on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I did it was basically very. The way I did it was basically, like, you know, I kind of focused on this one thing that you know, it was a very slow process, but it was a very steady process. You could basically, you know, craft these emblems fairly cheaply and fairly easily, and then turn it into your crafting guild for reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was good experience to craft these things, and it gave good experience to turn them in. So, like, you know, I wasn't in a big hurry to get things done fast. And so, you know, so basically, like, by crafting the emblems, I was able to master, master all the crafting professions back in the Mines of Moria expansion, I think it was. And for me, that was a lot of fun. Like, you know, like, I find, yeah, because I didn't want to grind things. I find that that's kind of a slight tangent. I find as an explorer more than an achiever, that's what makes things fun for me. Is like if I don't focus on trying to get it done as fast as possible. But a
Right.
lot that's kind of the achiever mindset is wanting to do this thing as fast as possible. Working things up as fast as possible. Because like when people ask me about crafting, 'cause I got all my crafters to level 70. Pretty early in Stormblood, and like I didn't grind. And basically, what I did is I just did grind company turn-ins.
Right. And that's my FC in Malboro is a crafting FC, but we have a primary Omni crafter, and that's how he does it. He just does his daily Grand Company turn-ins every day, and that's it. Like he doesn't kill himself over it because he'll get everyone taken care of, but it's not going to be that day.
Right.
And a lot of people can get upset about that because they're like, "Oh, but I want my stuff now." Well, I mean, not anyone in our guild, but when he's helping outside of the group people.
Right.
Like they'll be like, "Oh, well, I wanted this," and it's just like,
this thing now,
"Okay, I'll get it to you next week."
Right. I'll get it to you when I can. Yeah. Yeah, and so but like that did provide a little bit of social aspect, where a socializer could act as a go-between between the explorer figuring out something efficient and the achiever that wanted to know that how to make something efficient.
Although on the topic of information sharing, there's also the other side of that, which is misinformation sharing.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was a big thing. Meridian. Meridian 59 was a very hardcore PvP game, and it was basically like definitely in the from a much older era, where like not everything in the game was kind of like put out in the open for you. Like the game really kind of required you to like understand the mechanics in a lot more kind of fundamental way than a lot of games require you today. And so then exactly, people would kind of like sometimes share information, but then sometimes somebody would slip in a bit of bad information, and that use that as kind of an advantage against other people, knowing that this person now this person's going to try to do this thing that's going to that's at least going to delay them and being able to react to this tactic I'm going to use.
Press Alt F4 to win.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of a running joke in Meridian 59. It's like press, because the game, you couldn't jump in the game. And so people would ask, how do I jump? And this response was, press Alt F4.
Right.
And the game was small enough that people it gave announcements when people would log in or log out.
Oh, okay.
And like on a global level, and so basically, be like, so and so is logged out.
That's actually really messed up.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Messed up, but hilarious.
I know. Totally worth it, but
right.
you're a dick, so.
I mean,
but I was thinking back to my childhood. When.
Like last year.
Oh, fuck. Oh. No, it was 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember Ocarina of Time being a huge thing with rumors on the early internet, because one of the things that was kind of one of the things that you didn't do in Ocarina of Time was collect the Triforce. You never got the full Triforce.
Right.
And I remember me and my brother going online in the early internet and going on like Legend of Zelda fan sites or message boards or whatever, and people like being like, if you do this, 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 and this, you'll get the Triforce, and you get an alternate ending type stuff. And like we tried everything, like we did every stupid little thing, and it was partially supported because the game was so buggy from its rushed release.
Right.
That like some of the things were just believable because maybe there was a bug with some incomplete
Right.
data where they
Right,
changed
right.
the direction, you know.
Yeah, the two things that reminds me of is Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah.
Endless amount of posts and whatnot talking about how you can secretly get Eris back, and that was believable because in Final Fantasy VI you had the ninja character who you actually did have a chance to rescue if you did something very specific in the game. So like the other interesting thing talking about bugs. Actually, I had something in mind, but I kind of.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I got too much talking about Final Fantasy VII, thinking about the Eris thing. But yeah.
Well, on the Eris thing, I was just gonna say that there, like, even looking back at it now with people data mining the game files, there are actually character dialogue for Aerith. Eris? I forget.
I think it's been translated both ways.
That were originally written beyond the point that she dies. Spoiler alert.
Right.
And she has a limit break in the game as well.
Right. I remember people talking about that. I mean, basically, this is kind of like it was all fuel for the fire, kind of why people kind of said, why these things were so believable, because there's a lot of things like that. I also I remember the other thing I was going to think about was Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 4, also known as Final Fantasy 2 in the States, had, because there's kind of an easy version of the game and a hard version, and the US only ever saw the easy version of the game. But there's basically, like, if you did some hacking in the ROM, basically you could find a lot of other information.
All share in this bounty.
You can basically find some of the hidden items that basically were only useful for the other ones.
Oh, okay.
And actually one of the things that you could do is, like, the twins that turn to stone. There's supposedly like some rare item you could get. Again, spoilers for like a probably almost 3-decade-old game.
Yeah.
But like, it was very confusing because in the US version you could go up and you could click on them and you can use something on them. But there's nothing in that version of the game that allow you to do anything. But I guess if I remember correctly, in the hard version, the Japanese version considered the hard version, you could there was an item that would let you kind of break them from stone. I assume it's one of those things they probably figured it was a better story to have these two twins sacrifice themselves and have it feel worthwhile and not make the sacrifice in vain.
Right. Well, the Square Enix has a Square has a history of thinking very little of American audiences.
Right. What is it called?
Mystic Quest.
Mystic Quest. Yeah. After I bought it and I played it, I'm like, okay, this is kind of it doesn't really feel like a Final Fantasy game. And then I kind of realized later, I'm like,
I've never had the pleasure.
It's not an awful game, but it's definitely not like it's not very satisfying.
Well, from what I've read, there's like an auto fight button that you can press that basically wins the game for you.
I mean, yeah, there was. I mean, it was. Basically, what it was intended to be, like, from the description, it's supposed to be kind of like,
Baby's
my
first RPG.
MMO. Right. And so, they kind of like, they kind of went easy on it, you know, because that's kind of like what you do. You know, you want people to have kind of this satisfying experience for the first RPG.
That actually reminds me of a Harry Potter RPG I played.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the Chamber of Secrets for the Game Boy Advance. Or it was Chamber of Secrets, or it was Sorcerer's Stone. I don't remember which one.
Right.
But like throughout the entire game, it was like weirdly difficult. Not like it was hard, not because it was difficult, but because the game design was so bad.
Right.
But like the actual fight.
Here, sometimes there's sometimes adaptations like this are just, you know, cash grabs. You know, sometimes, you know, companies will just make a game and you know, the popular, you know, use some popular franchise to make a game. So
No.
it sells. I know.
But yeah, like it tried to be like a Legend of Zelda JRPG at the same time. Like you'd have like sections where you like have Legend of Zeldas, and you'd have like pitfalls, and you'd have to solve puzzles and use your magic to do you know, to be your MacGuffin power ups.
Right.
But then you'd also go and no, I'm thinking of two different games. Hold on a second. You know what? I have two Harry Potter games. I have one for the Game Boy Advance. I have one for the Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Color is the JRPG one, and then the Game Boy Advance one is the Legend of Zelda clone. And they both sucked. Just throwing that out there.
I think they're both fine EA products, but
Were they?
I think
Probably.
I think EA had the license for Harry Potter games for a long while.
I mean, they're probably my old game box that's over there. I could go find them, but anyways, back on topic.
The point, right. The point being, yeah, and so I think
Enjoy pumpkin.
yeah, like that.
Pumpkin says Mystic Quest is actually a Secret of Mana title. American publisher thought Final Fantasy was a more known quantity. That makes it even more sad.
Yeah. Because well, there was the Final Fantasy Adventure games on the Game Boy that played very similar to Mystic Quest. Except I think one of the big thing was like Mystic Quest was a very easy game. That's generally where it kind of gets a lot of the hate from, because it's a very basic game, and so.
Well, I've heard the Japanese version's much harder.
Right.
They made it easy specifically for the American version because they didn't think Americans would be able to understand the concept of a JRPG. Because I think it was one of the first JRPGs to be brought West Side, if I remember correctly.
Well, I mean, like, you know, but you know, there's always kind of this idea of trying to kind of indoctrinate more people into enjoying, you know, a certain type of game. You know, Nintendo did it kind of recently with the Wii and whatnot.
Well, speaking of Nintendo, we could talk about the socialization, the social design aspects of Nintendo games, which I think the best example of that, and I know this wasn't one of our planned discussion pieces, but Pokemon.
Right.
They very much tried to make Pokemon a social game of having two versions of each game type, so that in theory, by their design, people would have to trade with other people who had the other game type.
Right.
Of course, people just bought both game types, but.
Well, I mean, yeah, the point was.
So you're saying people bought both game types. in the US, or adults bought both game types.
Right.
That you're kind of generalizing that the social aspect is probably structured or
More for
realized
Japanese
differently
culture.
in the home region and among actual children playing the game.
Right,
Who
right.
will probably only get one version, because why would their parents buy the multiple versions of the exact same
yeah.
game? And either they would have to interact with siblings, or other people at school that own the game.
Right, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're too terribly concerned about the case of was it 30, 40 something man children in their hovels with their 5 different copies of the same Pokemon game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, at the end of the day, kind of like I said, a lot of design is essentially intended to kind of like make the game more appealing. We can talk a lot about, or and to make more money. Nintendo kind of being like, Nintendo's gonna cry its way all the way to the bank if it's, like Minox said, if it's, adults buying 2 copies of the game because they want to play the game, they don't want to have to hunt down their local 10-year-old to trade for the Pokemon not included in their copy. The flip side being, the kids tend to be much more social, have a lot more social, social interaction, and in the Western market, it being a lot more acceptable for a kid to have a game go around looking. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about kind of like selling more units, because even if it's like Billy coming to school and say, oh hey, look at this cool new Pokemon, I got Pokemon A, you need to go get Pokemon B, and then we can play together and trade, and it'll be cool.
My uncle works at Nintendo, so I got a Mew. Oh, wow.
Right, and so like and yeah, so like even social design kind of extends past online games into like a multiplayer game. Console games kind of being very notorious, like for a long time. Like over the years, there's been kind of a back and forth between console games where each one was kind of like dominant, depending on what aspects could be offered and what was cheaper, to play with. But like one of the big aspects of console games was like, it was designed, like a lot of games were designed to be played on a larger screen than your computer monitor on the TV, and like you'd have things like split screen to allow people to kind of have I think today they would call it the on the couch experience of like getting together with friends and like, okay, like
The local co-op.
Right. You and I are gonna play, and like computer games had a bit of this as well with hot seat co-op, or 2 people sharing kind of the computer.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of a push for more local co-op, like smaller title games.
Right.
As of late, because a lot of people complained, oh well, I don't have a local game I can play with my significant other or sibling or whatever.
Right.
So people started designing, some smaller companies just started designing those games again.
Well, yeah, and there's indies are always ones kind of push a lot of boundaries.
I was trying to avoid using that word.
Sorry. Hey, look, I was in India once, so I get to use the word.
It's our word.
What we called the dog.
It's our word. You can't use it.
But yeah, so like but you have Another interesting thing to talk about is looking at like the social network games, games on Facebook and whatnot, or like even what kind of more modern mobile games.
The spores have almost completely saturated the atmosphere. You need to get out of there.
Oh yeah, the Facebook games.
Right.
After that point, no amount
Hey,
of
hey,
And so,
do you have a dog I can trade for my zoo?
for a while.
well, yeah. So like it was very interesting looking at the design of a lot of these games because on one hand, the multiplayer aspect tended to be kind of shallow, where it really kind of focused on asynchronous multiplayer, and like and a lot of it was on Facebook specifically, it was about like basically spamming what were essentially advertisements on the other people's walls.
And links and yeah.
Right. Like, oh, so and so sent you a cow. You can redeem this cow by going and playing our game. And
Stop
so
the
like
cow.
exactly. Please, I don't care. Turn them into hamburgers first.
My mom actually plays those games, and I remember her complaining one time because there's somebody who was I think they were a whale for that particular game, and they were one of those people that's just like, oh yeah, it's DM me and I'll send you links, all the links you need. And I remember her just getting like super pissed off because this person sent her like 500 links for 500 items. And like this was something that she'd have to, go through manually.
Right. Click each one.
And my mom just sends them like this really nasty message, just like, well, she wasn't being nasty. She was just like, don't like send me 500 things. Like that's ridiculous. That's gonna take me, 6 hours to get through.
Right.
And the person got really nasty. She was like, well, don't ask me for anything if you're. I'm just oh man, that's actually a really weird issue to have.
Yeah.
Like to have too many promotions.
Right. Having too much stuff. But yeah, until and then when you got to mobile games, like a lot of it became like they kind of kept a lot of that asynchronous multiplayer, but then got rid of any vestiges of interaction.
Oh yeah, you can borrow one of your friend's characters.
Right. Like like I played quite a bit of Puzzle and Dragons, and it was like basically it was a game where I made all these quote friends, but like I just didn't have a name. Like I couldn't chat with them, I couldn't say anything to them. I mean, and reason because especially games that skew younger, you don't want the news story about your game being
predators.
Predator or abusive person finds the latest victim via this game.
Oh, that actually reminds me of never mind. Moving on. Never mind.
Some things are best left on
no, that's not a fun story. Never mind.
Yeah. And so basically you kind of run into basically there was a lot of discussion about these games, and like basically kind of the social nature of them. Well, a lot of what they're using is essentially is more a sense of obligation. And I mean, I'm not saying this to damn these games. Like raiding kind of works the same way in an online game in an MMO. You have this sense of obligation that kind of keeps you tied to the game, and this feeling of, well, if I don't show up, then this group can't have fun, and I don't want to be the person that ruining everybody's fun. So. Oh god, they have to find a tank to replace me. Right. That is the worst feeling. Right. But like but it's a feeling people have that kind of keeps them tied to the game. So, and I think it's the same thing with like a lot of the social network games and the multiplayer mobile games, where a lot of the motivation is less about, kind of making these deeper connections with people, finding friends, and more about kind of obligating you. Well, stop playing. This person can't use the thing that that you got. Or, you're using this other person's, super high-powered guy that they spent $10 for. Maybe you should spend $10 in order to, pay back, for using this thing.
Guilt by association.
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically.
Another life support capsule is now available.
And so, I think, like a lot of kind of mobile games and social network games kind of got, fairly or unfairly damned for a lot of these kind of design decisions. Where people, potentially people wanted to kind of create fun games, but the reality is, they were kind of using metrics to kind of find out, what gets people addicted to the game.
Games by charts.
Right.
But that's the scary thing, though, is that they are very good at making their games addictive.
Well, I mean, I hesitate to call it addiction because, basically we kind of use that as a term, and sometimes even people use it as kind of a term of endearment about, oh, this game is super addictive, so it's great.
Right.
But, actual physiological addiction is something completely different.
Well, when I say addiction, I mean actually messing with your brain, using game mechanics to purposely make you want to play the game, whether you enjoy it or not.
Well, I mean, it's, again, like we do a lot of things that we may not enjoy, but we do it for social reasons. Going and hanging out at the bar is a perfect example for me. Like, I don't get drunk often. I don't. I'm not. I don't like large crowds, but like, if a good friend of mine kind of showed up in town and was like, hey, let's go hit the bar, I'd be like, sure.
Right.
Peer
pressure.
I mean, yeah, and we kind of accept that as kind of like, that's how the world works because that's how it's always worked. I don't know how you're doing, but we might want to kind of keep an eye on the time. Were you feeling better, Minodoc? Did you want to join us again, or?
Sure.
Oh.
I mean, it's fine if you're still not feeling well. We're just kind of running something. We're heading up. We're heading up to a 5-minute boundary. But yeah, like, and so like a lot of kind of the thing. I mean, a lot of the things is basically like, a lot of the research. I don't think most game developers are looking at, okay, can we make this game addictive and make people kind of like rely on us about this. Oh, what is that?
Well, I'd say that like mobile games in particular are a little more conscientious of that. My biggest example of that is limited energy to actually play the game. And I think it's partially a psychological effect, and then the other one is just gets you to spend more money on the game. But
right, well,
sorry, go ahead.
The flip side of that is like like the energy thing. It basically it's kind of part and parcel of the free to play model. Like you get to play a certain amount for free. I shouldn't say part and parcel, but I think it was a kind of a major way, it fit with the concept of how people thought about free to play games, because like well, you can play for free up to this point, but after this point then you need to pay extra to kind of keep on playing. Right. And I think like this felt fair for a lot of people because this is kind of what we do. Is like you might free essentially the idea of kind of being free samples. Like you can play this limited amount per day. But of course, like the motivation was to kind of get you interested in the game and get you.
After that point, no amount of life support
Oh.
will save you.
A couple of. We're getting.
That should keep you going for a while.
of course, the idea was to kind of get you kind of interested in the game enough that you wanted to, that you would, you'd want to pay for more energy or whatnot. And like we've seen kind of like free-to-play games, evolve from that. The game we're playing right now, Warframe, of course, being kind of a good example of that, where it changed so that you can play a lot of the game for free. It's just damn convenient to buy some platinum and basically kind of
get everything
get some things you
faster.
want. Right. Either speed up things that are going to be crafted, or just outright buy something that's going to be a pain to farm. While we head towards extraction.
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll bolt at 40.
And as far as time-wise, we're coming up on 2 hours, by the way.
Alright.
And I like to throw it up as like 2 hours minimum. Everything over that is fine up to 3.
Right. But yeah, I think like a lot of the when we start talking about a lot of social design, a lot of it's kind of done in the service of, like I said, kind of like making the game more compelling for you and your friends.
Because sorry, go ahead and finish.
Wanting to play more because like that's that's kind of what you and your friends do. Playing a game together, enjoying it.
And anyone who plays MMOs a lot as like their primary entertainment, a lot of them say, oh, if I wasn't playing with my friends, I wouldn't, stay on this game.
Right. And I think that like that doesn't mean like the game sucks and it's holding them there. It's like I said, like well, this bar sucks, but my friends are here drinking, enjoying, and I'm enjoying the talk with them, so I'm gonna stay with them. That doesn't mean the bar is being abusive to you. Doesn't mean the bar is terrible, because obviously it's appealing to your friends.
Honestly, I would love to see more free-to-play games adopt Warframe style models.
The trick with a lot of models is that you kind of like really need to have enough of a ramp up for them to start getting for them to start being effective, because like a lot of the ways that Warframe kind of makes money these days is by basically vaulted primes and new Warframes that people don't want to farm for. This is something that an established game can basically do pretty well, but it's something that a new game can't pull off quite so effectively.
I wonder if I'm trying to think of how to think this thought through all the way. Like, because they made Excalibur Prime an exclusive deal.
Right.
So that you could only get it with that one bundle that came out before the game was even popular. And I wonder if that kind of helped drive people to buy the following bundles, because then people realize, oh crap, these bundles could be one-time only purchases that never come back again. Because I regret not getting the Excalibur Prime bundle when I could have gotten it.
Right.
So
FOMO is strong. I mean, that's what any of those kinds of bundles or limited things are designed to do.
Right.
Is to compel people to push the button to buy, because you don't know when or if it'll be back.
Right.
Right.
And so, that's a perfect example. And I remember, we have offline examples of this as well. I remember a friend of mine talking about their grandparents, got a lifetime subscription to Reader's Digest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really great deal for them, because they didn't pay that much money, and they basically get mailed the Reader's Digest that they really enjoyed. and they talked to somebody at the company and said, oh, it feels like we're kind of taking advantage of you, and they're like, don't, this is the kind of what we need to do in order to survive the early days. But obviously, like Reader Digest doesn't offer a lifetime subscription anymore. It's kind of the same thing. Like MMOs used to do that a lot too with the lifetime subscriptions. Back to Lord of the Rings Online did that. But kind of the idea was, you'd get a lot of money up front. You got a lot of money from people who wanted to play the game up front.
Yeah, I've learned through personal experience. Oh, Mitter, are you joining us again?
Sure.
Again, another unclippable statement. I learned very early on not to trust lifetime anything. Because me and my friends, we bought a lifetime Ventrilo server. And then we found out that the server host that offered that was ran by a scammer. And just one day out of the blue, all that entire host just shut down because he got caught up on and a warrant went out for his arrest for some other con he was running. And he had to flee the country, I want to say. So overnight, like, we lost that server that we spent, $150 for.
Right.
I mean, we didn't complain that much because we did have it for like 12 years, but still, a lifetime, lifetime of the host.
Right.
Well, lifetime services is then different than, say, buying a tool or some other durable good with some kind of lifetime guarantee. I mean, it's always been contingent on the existence of said backing company, but typically, in cases of durable goods, the companies offering those kinds of guarantees have been companies that have been around and thus have an established reputation. You don't offer a lifetime warranty on your tools if you know they're going to break all the time.
Or they're going to be using. Yeah. I think that's
But I would never buy anything lifetime with any kind of digital service. That's like, I mean, you may as well put your money through a paper shredder and like throw it up in the air.
Well, I think it's a question of like, you have to figure out what the expected lifetime is, and whether or not you're going to enjoy the service, or whether or not it's going to be around for that. Because like, it's one of those things, like for an MMO, lifetime MMO subscription, like I think like Lord of the Rings Online, it was like roughly equivalent to like a year and a half of subscriptions. So I mean, if you're gonna play for more than a year and a half, like lifetime, it makes sense.
Sure.
Right.
And even when they went to a free to play model, they still kind of made sure that they treated the people who bought the lifetime subscriptions, kind of made sure that they basically felt like they were not getting kind of screwed out of the deal, since they were essentially playing for free. They didn't want people to feel like, they didn't want the subscribers to feel like, oh, now these other people can kind of come and play for free. The lifetime subscribers still got like a lot of bonuses and whatnot.
Yeah, we could talk about the social aspect of that. Because that was a trend that was happening a lot with a lot of games in a relatively short amount of time. Was a whole bunch of subscription games all of a sudden going free to play.
Right.
Well, I think it was from that sort of gold rush period, and then everyone figured out that the gold was just coated lead.
Well, I think there is definitely a social dynamic to it because you like a lot of games, you know, play better when there's actually other people playing, right? You know, like you know,
Right.
the bonus of free to play isn't the like from the developer's point of view, isn't that you're giving away the game for free. You know, that's kind of a terrible thing to do.
You're just changing how the money rolls in.
Right, and like and you're also lowering the barriers to entry for the game, so that people so more people are going to try the game, with the idea of some people may be willing to stick around and still play the game even though it's not being even if it's not um, uh,
Life support
even if it's not going to play the game, even if they don't pay for it. They're still kind of what basically the concept is creating content for the game by they're still creating content in the game by basically being a social thing that other people can by being social like what other people can interact with.
Yeah, I find it interesting though because from the social side of things of how like the subscribers interact with the free to players, like they would tend to kind of hold themselves in a higher air than like the new rush of players. They're like, oh, look at all these noobs coming in, and oh, because
Right.
it's free now, and we're the veterans. We paid for this game. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're gonna get you're gonna get that in any population where you kind of have
The
new
elites.
people kind of you're gonna have some form of elitism. People kind of like looking down on the commoners who
I think I had a year subscription to Terra, and it didn't even last a year before it got converted to free to play.
That's actually kind of sad.
Well, usually a lot of games that go free to play, like they still have a subscription.
Hmm.
It's just the subscription is no longer strictly required in order to play the game.
Yeah, I'm like in my brain going social design. That's because I have all these other things popping up in my head. Oh no,
Yeah.
someone with ADD having a hard time sticking to a topic. Oh no.
I'm so shocked and surprised. Well, I like, but like I was saying though, like a lot of times
Another
the
life support
free-to-play
capsule is
design
now available.
allowed you to have more people playing.
Hmm.
And there, I mean, basically, this like some games, like this is very important for people because like they, they like the game, but maybe they couldn't afford the subscription. And if there was a way for them to, kind of another interesting aspect is the currency conversion, where you earn one type of currency, you can kind of sell it for another type of
Right.
currency. Again, going back to Warframe here, you have platinum where people can trade platinum. So if you can go and farm, something and offer it to other people and sell for platinum, you can potentially still get some of the benefits of the premium stuff without having to spend a whole lot of money yourself.
Yeah, I think that's something that I definitely like to see more of that in free-to-play games. Whenever I see a free-to-play game that doesn't
Life support on
doesn't
the way.
offer premium currency conversions, I always feel like they're missing an economic opportunity for players. Because
Right.
those conversions create an entire economy within the game.
Right. The flip side of that, though, is that if you have something like that tradable, then you run the risk of there being kind of nasty bugs that allow you to duplicate stuff.
Hmm.
Additional life support has arrived.
And in a game like where currency, being able to trade that premium currency, having people kind of like
Find
purchase
exploits.
find exploits to duplicate the premium currency.
Oh, if you buy this item for this exact amount, it'll give you
Right.
one extra.
Extraction
Right.
is available.
Or more along the lines of
Process is making progress.
if I trade, like, like Meridian had a dupe bug where it was basically like, the game didn't see if you were trying to trade the same thing twice. So if I had a stack of items, I'd trade you the same stack of items twice. The game would be like, oh, there's 2 items I'm being traded. I'm gonna add a number to the first one, and discard the second one. Well, it kept around. Surprisingly enough, it kept around the second one. It didn't delete it. So, and so so then you had the kind of the problem of people basically then just kind of trade things. So if there's a premium currency that was use the same system, and obviously you can get around that by better programming and tracking things and logging things better.
Mm-hmm.
The downside of that is that then you're adding a lot more kind of programming time, especially in a situation where you don't have a whole lot of time to begin with.
Right.
Where you're trying to kind of get a game out on strict schedule and budget. It can just be easier to say that no, any premium currency you buy is stuck on your character. You don't
Right.
have to worry about potential bugs or duping or losing income.
It's all a matter of an argument of cost benefit.
Right. Exactly. But I like like I said, on the flip side of that is that sometimes it's nice because you can get people playing your game that are a benefit to the game. People who are in a role like socializer, like maybe somebody who just likes the game. They don't want to, they don't play the game enough to kind of make it worth subscribing, but they kind of are that fun person that people are like, well, I'd leave, but hey, this person plays the game, so.
Right. When I was playing the Old Republic, I've subscribed to the game for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, long enough for me to get all the characters that I wanted, get them leveled up, to get the raiding gear that I wanted. But once I was done running the content, I stopped subscribing, but I kept playing as a what they called a preferred player, which was basically a free-to-play player that spent money.
Right.
And
most games seem to have kind of that distinction. The idea is, if you get you to buy at least one thing, that's going to lowers the resistance to buying stuff in the future.
Mm-hmm. And I would just, be a role player and just hang out with people as a free-to-play player once I was kind of done doing all the content. And I mean, if I were to take the Burroughs test now, I'd be a 100% socializer. I barely run content on games other than Warframe, for example. But on 14, I run the new raids once, and I don't really want to grind.
Right.
I wait for all the time gates to wear off and then catch up.
Right.
Be right back. One moment.
Sure. I think that's a legitimate strategy of kind of being a little behind the curve. But again, you still have the potential for social interaction because you have friends that will still be able to play with you because the game kind of caters to that. And then, again, this is kind of the benefit of the game not having such an absolute focus on achievers, because you kind of give other people that can kind of really kind of provide a lot of kind of that social fabric to your game.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
That's fine.
Everyone else knows I'm back because I'm shooting things again, but.
We will all share earn this bounty.
But yeah, I think that it's kind of important that we kind of understand that there needs to be, you know, like like you said, again, Bartle's original thesis was you wanted to kind of cater to the right mix of players in order to kind of have the right kind of
Composition.
the right kind of balance of all the different types of players.
Right. And I think like when games try to cater to socializers, everyone tends to benefit from it to an extent.
Right.
For example, I have some really, really hardcore raiding friends. They have I think one world first clear for Final Fantasy 14. If not world first, server first. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right. They're not slashes, yeah.
Yeah. They're really, really big and high up, and they absolutely love when role play related updates come out. Like vanity items and new glamours come out for role play. They're all over that new stuff because it gives them something pretty to get.
Right.
Or when the new emotes come out, they're all over it.
Right.
Just because it's something pretty. And this is someone that doesn't spend, a whole lot of time, spamming emotes for RP or anything. It's just like, no, I just like it.
Right. I mean, like, in Final Fantasy 14, I'm very much the same way, where my character, I collect a lot of minions. Like, I haven't, except for the last few patches, like I had almost a complete set of all the minions you can collect.
Isn't that just the worst?
I use like 2.
Go ahead. Sorry.
What?
I was gonna say, isn't that just the worst? You get all of them, and then they add more.
Yeah. It's never-ending vicious cycle. But like the thing is, like, I only use 2 or 3 of them. A lot of these minions, I'm not like I might pull them out, just kind of like brag about them, just go, hey, look, I've got this super rare minion. Make people jealous, but like but the reality is that I don't. I'm not going to use. I'm not going to use a lot of them, but like I still like collecting them because they're kind of the part of your brain that just like, hey, there's a collection here, I must complete the collection.
Right, and that's the achieverness.
Right.
Achieverness? What?
Achiever motivation, yes.
Brain. Start braining, please. I was reading chat. Yeah. Loves both social and content. Yeah, I used to really love running the dungeons, and I'd try to run them with friends, but I'm an antisocial person, so I actually like queuing for things solo. I feel a little more pressured when I'm running with friends for some reason. Because I don't want to let them down by, messing up.
Well, like, how do you explain you being on a Warframe? Is you start a disappointment at this point?
I'm always a disappointment.
Exactly, so why is it changed on Final Fantasy 14?
Because I actually care about what those friends think.
Oh. Ow. Okay.
You asked.
You didn't have to answer that. You could just ignore my question.
So of the social design of this podcast, I think we've fallen apart.
That's just because you're an asshole. No design can fix that. Design can't fix broken people. But yeah, But you know, it's important to remember kind of like for the motivations is that there's no one like you know like there's nobody who's like you know purely an achiever or purely a socializer.
Right.
We
Uh,
all kind of have different kind of motivations, and things kind of change over time. You know, I was much more
Mhm.
achiever and killer focused before. It tends to be like you know as you kind of get more you know older and you as you get more established in a game in particular, you know, you want that social interaction a lot more.
Mhm. Yeah, I used to be a very, very much of an
Oh,
achiever.
I think somebody was supposed to press the button on one of the things.
Oh,
I got it.
I got one too.
That
Handle
should
those.
keep you going for a while.
We're not dead yet.
Um, like I did super hardcore raiding. I wanted to, you know, get those titles. I wanted to get the armors and the loots and the minions and all that stuff. And now I can't even be bothered. I think a lot of it's because I've already done it before,
Right.
and I've had that fulfillment of making those accomplishments that why should I even bother doing it again on another game, you know?
Well, I mean, kind of what we said now, kind of what we joked there is like at one point I had almost everything, and then, well, then they added more, and it's like, well, you know, I mean, but you can, I mean, I guess kind of we can turn kind of toward the concept of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, achievers burn out when they kind of like, you know, what people used to kind of call the treadmill. You kind of look
Still
at it like,
kind of do.
well, yeah. I mean, like, it gets a lot of kind of attention these days, but like, yeah, it's like I do Dungeon A so I can get the gear, so you know, I qualify to do Dungeon B, and then I do Dungeon B to get the gear, so I qualify to do Dungeon C, and then you kind of realize that like this is just you know like you know this is how it's going to continue going.
Mm-hmm.
Another life support
You know, you're not, you know, like it's, you know, and so from an explorer point of view, like yeah, or you know, or you know, for also guys, also from an achiever point of view, like you know, oh, I've collected all these things, but they're gonna keep on adding more, so I'm gonna stop.
So why
And so you
bother?
kind of get
Yeah.
this kind of, right, you get this case of burnout, and I think like you can also get social burnout, and this is kind of important. I like, you know, I think you know, we all know it. Anybody who plays MMOs know what social burnout is. It's called drama.
Yeah. That's
You know, it's
I was just thinking about that. Yeah.
right where you know you get to the people get to the point where like you know, like they kind of don't want to just kind of get along to go along. Kind of like, you know, well, no.
X said this. Y hurt my feelings. Man.
Right, and suddenly it becomes a lot more like you know you're not willing to kind of put up with other people's you know stuff anymore because like, well, no, that was hurtful, it was terrible. Like people, I don't appreciate people who said that.
I think a lot of that tends to. I mean, I when I start thinking about like burnout, I start thinking about becoming overly sensitive to whatever it is you're doing. You become so sensitive to the dungeon that you have to run 1,000 times that you become overwhelmed by like how sensitive
right.
you've become to it. And
Right.
social burnout is the same way. You become very sensitive to the relationships that you have with people to the point that, you know, little things, you know, become exaggerated to the point where you can't deal with it anymore.
Right, you might have been, you know, kind of politely kind of, you know, smiled and nodded before when, you know, someone said, you know, something to you, but then all of a sudden it becomes like, well, no.
They push that button so many times, and I mean this applies outside of gaming too. Like this could be a family thing, a workplace thing, school, like.
Right. Well, but like looking at it from a design, what, you know, is there anything we can potentially do to kind of like help to deal with this problem, where you have, you know, people that just kind of become overly sensitive. Because for a cheaper burnout, the solution is basically is to make sure you design enough different types of content to kind of keep things fresh.
Which is what 14 has kind of started to do over time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing as World of Warcraft. You add new things to the game. They added pet battles not because because it gave some people something new to do within the game.
It's so stupid.
I mean, yeah, so you're gonna get that. You're gonna get some people that are like, I don't like it. Other people are like, this is the best thing ever. I love it. I'm going to focus on this as something interesting for my character.
Do we need to bring up Eureka?
Grinding is great. Well, I mean, I think the flip side of that though is the new canals. Was doing maps with some friends a little while ago. One of the few times I actually logged on to Final Fantasy recently.
Mm-hmm.
And they had directed me the maps, and so maps used to be this thing where you'd fight monsters in a room, and there was two exits. One led to further, deeper into the dungeon. The other one was, basically would boot you out.
Right.
And so they replaced that basically with this giant roulette wheel. When you go in, and basically, the type of monster, whatever you fight, is determined by what the roulette wheel kind of says at the beginning.
Oh, that's a new map room?
Yeah, the new maps, the new canals.
Oh, okay. I haven't done the new ones yet.
Right. And it was actually pretty interesting. I mean, it kind of changed up the thing, I mean, you get down to it, if you squint hard enough,
it's the same
it's
thing.
The same,
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's the same thing. You're going in rooms and you have a random chance to continue, or a random chance to get bumped backwards. Excuse me. Or to even be bumped out. I mean, but they were even able to do the same thing as before, with trolling the players. As the thing spins, it looks like it stopped, but no, it actually goes one more space forward, or even two smaller spaces forward. But yeah, it's it's basically is the same thing, but it adds a lot more, because it
just a different
enough
twist.
Different to it, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so this is kind of what makes what keeps the game interesting from a achiever point of view. It's what can you do from a socializer point of view? I think one of the main things you look at is one of the main things you can look at is having having the opportunity to kind of run into more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
I know on the role playing server, I've heard a lot of people kind of talk about Balmung on Final Fantasy 14 and how back when the server used to be closed, basically kind of things really got kind of bogged down because there was no new players kind of creating the characters to kind of make things interesting. Everybody basically got kind of playing in their little groups.
Everything turned super clicky,
characters.
yeah.
Right. And so and I can definitely see this being kind of moments of social burnout where players suddenly feel like, oh, I think this is no longer as interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's actually related to something else that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, which was it goes back to World of Warcraft, but an antisocial tendency that I found where when I was playing WoW, I could not find a guild that was recruiting. Like, I'd sit there and just be like, hey, I'm looking for a guild. I mean, I'd even, write a little explanation,
right.
saying, I'm a streamer. I'm looking to stream the game. I'm looking for, you know, a guild to hang out with, that I can stream with, that, you know, kind of show off the content to my audience? Is, you know, are there any, you know, kind of casual, laid back guilds to hang out with? Could not find a single group.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's maybe the age of the game.
Maybe. And it was like just in the like the new expansion had just come out, like had only been out for like a week, I guess. And I figured like there'd be a lot of people coming back to the game, checking it out, this that, and the other, but from what I could tell, like most of the community was still burnt out from the last expansion.
Right. I've heard like a lot of, you know, I was reading a lot of commentary on Twitter at the time, like nobody seems super excited about the latest WoW expansion. So, but that is interesting. Like, yeah, and I think part of that is because WoW has been very much at the forefront of focusing on you know, the efficiency of the achiever experience. Like, not like, you know, any sort of like overhead achiever, you know, being eliminated, and kind of like, and so in the, you know, kind of like, you know, what a lot of people, including myself, kind of anticipated was that, you know, like in the long term, it's going to hurt the game, because you're going to get people, you know, basically, you know, it's going to, you know, you're going to get people that basically have focused so much on the achievement side of things, and basically, like, you know, there's not going to be people that are going to want to do the social side of things much.
Yeah, and it's actually harder to be social with random people in Warcraft now.
Right. Well, I mean, like Warcraft is always kind of notorious for being terrible about that. Like, you know, going back to the Party Finder and whatnot. You know, after the Party Finder, like, you know, with cross realm stuff, it made it very convenient, but it also made it kind of awful, because like people had a lot less motivation to frankly to be nice to other people.
Right.
Because, you know, it's like, you know, you're one person in a large pool of people. I may never see you again. It's easier for me to treat you as a disposable, you know,
Resource
product, right? And, you know, yell at you if you're not, you know, if you're not supporting my efficiency, than it is to invest any sort of kindness into you.
Yeah, well, the point that I was making is because the entire game is phased now. Everything is like mega server phased. So
Right.
there can be hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the same exact place that you are, and you won't see a single person.
Right.
Unless
Especially
you...
if you're lagging behind in the story, you know, you're in an earlier phase, and, you know, timeline wise than everybody else is.
Right. Or not even that. I mean, like, you can be at the same exact point in the story as everyone else and still not see them. Like, it's like, I know what you're talking about as far as like what the original phasing was. This is on steroids. Because like there's world bosses that you do for world quests every now and then as like a daily quest, and you can go over to that world boss and start fighting them like I did this a lot, and I'd start fighting them before realizing, oh crap, this is a world boss mob. I'm going to die because I'm the only person fighting it.
Right.
But I'd be playing as a tank, so yeah, I could take, you know, a few minutes worth of hits before I actually died.
Right.
But I wouldn't...
You could kill it, but you could basically... I'll last it for a bit.
Right. So what I would do... And there's a party finder system similar to 14. What I do is I jump in the party finder system and find a group for that world boss, which that's an automatic category in that system. And I jump in that and get phased out of the boss that I'm fighting, so I don't die, and get phased in with the group who's actually fighting it. It was really messed up, but it worked.
Right. That is kind of interesting.
And that's just it. The only time you get phased in with anybody in particular is
Look what our Tenno
if you're
operators
in
did.
group with them.
They could not do this without you.
Right.
Or if you're flagged for war mode, which is the open world PvP mode, then everyone who's flagged for war gets phased into the same instance.
Huh.
And that's an independent phase from everyone else.
Right.
I never tried war mode because I'm a little wussy girly, wussy coward girl. But yeah. So that kind of enforces like the antisocial tendency because you just don't see people in the game world anymore unless you're in town and just happen to be in a particular phase with a particular group of people.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, like I said, though, like in Warcraft, it's kind of notorious for basically being very solo friendly, which kind of tended to frustrate a lot of us more social people to know.
I mean, we could say similar things about like Blade and Soul, for example. Trying to level up as a group in that game is hard.
Right.
It's harder than it would be if we were just running it solo.
Right. People moving at different speeds and different.
Different gaming tendencies and.
Right. Well, I think the nice thing I liked, at least about Blade and Soul, is you didn't have to drop party every time there was a soul instance.
I absolutely hate that with 14. That is one of my biggest, because
Right,
that's the biggest like anti-social thing you can do.
Yeah,
Is be
yeah.
like, nope, you gotta be by yourself on an MMO.
Right.
Okay, thanks, game.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and so I think that so you kind of have Warcraft that kind of typifies that kind of that thought is like you have to everything should be can and should be done alone until you get to the dungeons.
Or the world bosses, which then it's just a matter of going into a menu and being, I want to join a group for this boss.
Right.
Which then, that only lasts for, the boss's life, then everyone leaves.
Right. I need to AFK real quick. Be right back.
Gotcha.
Stand in your stuff, but maybe I won't die.
I'll guard you.
Transference still holding.
It's so scary.
Saturation is nearing critical mass.
Uh-oh.
After that point, no amount of
I got one.
will save you. Life support has replenished.
How are you doing, Pumpkin? And welcome to Stream Star. I'm sorry, I meant to greet you earlier. Oh, what's that for dinner,
Ready for a
pumpkin?
capsule. We
Fine,
will
get a
share this
drink.
bounty.
Geez, see if
Hold
I
out as
care.
long as you
God.
can.
And
Welcome back. I forgot to actually talk while you were gone.
you're used to letting me blather on, huh?
I really am. Like, I don't know how to do solo streams anymore.
I've delivered a life support capsule.
I mean, again, we could always kind of open
Hmm?
audience. Yeah, we got some people watching. Like, if anybody else has any thoughts or questions or whatnot.
Oh yeah. If anyone, you know, has, you know, something they want to hear us, you know, ponder about or talk about, feel free to, you know, pose a question. This is an interactive thing, even if we don't make it seem like it. I love to, you know, have audience participation.
Right, right.
I live for it.
Yeah, I will say that I've started linking the kind of the videos on YouTube that Mulligan makes of these on my blog. My blog is psychochild.org, so if you kind of want to do like a little discussion after the fact, you can go to my blog, post comments. I will warn people, if you're new to my blog, you'll have to get the first comment you post approved. That should happen pretty quickly. You know, within a day or so. But you know, give me a, you know, be a little patient if it takes a little longer than that. But yeah, and then kind of like I said before, I think we said last week, kind of the goal is to you know, I'm gonna start doing more blog posts about topics.
There you go. I put a link in the chat for you. I'll make a command out of it.
Yeah.
For the next stream. Oops. I finally got the bots to cooperate. I forgot to mod my bot.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so basically, yeah, so I mean, and so the concept, as we start talking about kind of new and interesting topics, I'll probably post a little bit on my blog, to kind of prime discussion for things. A lot of the stuff we've been talking about recently has been stuff that I've, you know, talked about extensively on my blog already. Ooh.
Yeah, I gotta actually figure out topics.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and that's fine. I mean, like, you know,
I have to
Yeah,
actually
give
make
me-
efforts.
yeah, hopefully getting like, you know, some new people that haven't been just reading my blog forever. So, so hopefully this is like a little potentially interesting.
Yeah, and if anyone actually wants to suggest topics,
Right, right.
I
Speak up. Yeah, I might do a blog post about that here.
I can make a channel on my Discord server for topic suggestions.
Yeah, yeah, we can basically kind of do a lot of back and forth with that. So.
Yeah, if people actually want to join my Discord server. That's the really hard thing for streamers, that like every streamer has their own Discord server.
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right, right. And so if you follow half a dozen streamers, then you have to join half a dozen Discord servers, and
Yeah, like I joined 3 or 4 Discord servers of streamers that I like to hang out with, and I can't even keep up with their servers because there's just I have like 50 servers I have to try to maintain on my Discord list. If I were to give every server the amount of attention and love that they deserve from me, that would be my full-time job.
right, right. You just need to set up a Patreon to get people to pay you to do that.
Oh my goodness. That's the other thing I need to do, a Patreon.
Yeah, I've got it. Speaking of which, I've got a Patreon that you can, if you want to support me directly on my blog. I have a link to it at the top of my blog. Again, at psychochild.org. I kind of tied a lot of the stuff to me posting blogs, but like it could also be could also do have people throw in cash to support us doing this podcast. It does take us a little bit of time and effort to actually do this. I mean, it's kind of nice that we get to play games, and it's kind of nice that we get to do a little bit of streaming as well.
I think we should extract.
Okay. I'm gonna hit a thing because we only got 8%.
Yeah, to do this one weekly podcast, I've basically stopped doing all my other streams so that I can dedicate all my off-hour time to preparing the stream every week. Because it takes a lot of effort to figure out the topics, do the research that I don't do, get the splash screens all set up. I'm planning on doing editing to make highlights at some point. I'm still learning how to do that.
Right.
There's a lot of time and effort put into it. So any given support to help that is greatly appreciated.
Ooh, I actually got quite a few mutagen samples. I've got about 200.
I'm up to like 600, I think, now. What is the one that I usually use? Awakening, that's it. Okay. Actually, let me look at my samples here. I think I have one more big run left in me. Another half-hour run. Sound good?
Okay.
I'm just gonna bring Necros just to make the You left the squad?
Operator.
I went to the dojo. Sorry. Go ahead and invite me.
Okay.
Me too.
I went to the dojo to go. I didn't know we were gonna plan on doing another one. We're gonna go turn in my.
Yeah, we still got another half hour before.
It's all
more.
good.
I'll bring Necros just to make it easy. Actually. Ugh. And now we gotta figure out a topic for next week, too.
Yeah. We can kind of one of the easiest thing to do would be just kind of go.
Okay,
Bartle.
you cut out as soon as you said one of the easiest things to do.
One of the easiest things we could do is go down players Bartle's player types. Talk about socializers today. We could talk about killers and explorers. The next couple times. I think talking about achievers is probably not all that interesting because
That's everything.
right, yeah, it's basically most of the current MMOs have pretty good achiever design, so
Yeah, we could talk
and we'll
about
probably
that.
make a lot of kind of comparisons between those.
And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's actually a decent idea. Wow, somebody actually had a good idea in this group.
Oh,
Ooh.
it happens. A broken clock is right twice a day, so.
The infested are releasing toxic spores into the area. The emergency life support delivery is your only chance.
So I hope everyone's having fun with this. I know it's not the most
When your supply is
exciting things to talk about, but I find it interesting. That's all that matters to me.
I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's kind of like, I kind of what I would like to kind of go, but more interaction, kind of like because I think kind of the idea of the streaming podcast, kind of came from us shooting the shit when the times that I kind of logged on and ran stuff with you.
Can you
That's
see
kind
the
of-
reach of this Zaw?
I still haven't built a Zaw.
I haven't built one yet. Oh my, that's a long Zol. That's a pretty
That's
big.
not even. I don't even have Prime Breach maxed out on it.
That's a pretty big Zol you got there.
Oh, it's turning that type of stream.
After
Oh
hours.
my. Oh. Mulgrim after dark.
Oh.
I'm beginning to regret my life decision.
Yeah, I love to get some more chat interaction.
Yeah, I get
Chat.
more people kind of. So like I said, kind of the
TOS.
probably what I want to do is going forward is yeah, the idea going forward would be like I'll post something on my blog, get us some some preliminary discussion going, give us stuff to talk about, and then we can basically talk about it during the podcast, and then get people who have ideas and want to kind of talk about them, get us because like one of the best parts of my blog for me was when people would ask questions in the comments.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love interacting with the chat. Just the chat doesn't like interacting with me.
Oh,
I know.
that's okay. We're your friends.
Okay.
Maybe we should say we're the people that put up with you.
That's the problem.
Oh, you're not even worth putting up with. I mean, what?
I know, it's so hard to be me. It's so hard to be a CG cat trying to get through the world.
But no, it's yeah, it kind of like definitely would like to get more interaction. It seems like we have pretty consistent numbers of people who show up. So
Please talk to us. Please. Ooh.
now you're just gonna scare them away.
I know. I
Oh
just.
hey, if you had a hobbled dragon key, there's a vault.
I hate this vault so much. I mean, if we had a fourth, we could actually run for them, but
I don't care. I was just pointing it out.
I would love to get more corrupt mods. They sell really well if you
Right.
max them up.
Oh hey, new locos attacking me.
Yay! Happy
Oh, there they are.
birthday!
They have the fucking healers too, don't they?
Yes. So much yellow chat text on my screen right now. Isn't life easier with Necros? I guess I could have brought a loot hydroid too. That works too, but I've never set up that build before.
Oh, the tentacles that shake things out of people.
It's funny as hell to watch. Oh, my dog wants to come in. Give me a sec. Yes, Joy, what do you want? Hi. Joy, do you want to sing for the chat?
Another kind of interesting thing talking about social design in the game. Kind of what we've identified in Warframe here, like some Warframe work better when your squad mates suck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Basically some of the Warframes like work under the assumption that you need to kill lots of enemies. Saren kind of being one of the big ones.
Our operative is making progress. This will help our
Yeah,
You want a kind of a certain density of enemies, and if your friends are a little too good at killing your squad mate, and your friends, if your squad mates are a little too efficient at killing,
Then you can't get your spores out and built up,
right.
and you're basically useless. And Haru's like
Well-
that too.
Yeah, well, it's more along the lines of you're not having fun. You're not doing what the frame is built
Tenno,
for.
prepare for life support.
Was that the pupper?
What?
Was that the pupper wheezing, or was that a chair squeaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Delivered another life support capsule.
He's supposed to give him a little bit, and he will be both deaf and blind.
Aww.
Poor
I'm
guy.
pretty sure he's mostly blind in his left eye now.
Oh, that's sad. My German Shepherd got like that when she was older. She can't really see anymore. She would walk into walls.
Well, I guess, soon it'll be time to send him to the glue factory. They'll make the tiniest bottle of glue.
I don't think Chihuahuas make glue. No.
Huh. I thought that was a chupacabra.
I mean, maybe.
Goat glue.
I never. I heard it kind of sucks though.
It's not like duck glue or gorilla glue even. Duct glue?
Ready for
What?
a capsule.
That doesn't even make sense.
But yeah, so.
For the lowest.
Well, I kind of go back to social design. I like craft a lot about making it solo friendly, but I think one of the other things it did help to do was to make it. It was one of the early games that kind of made it so that it kind of eased how people could play together.
Mm-hmm.
Another game, Dark Age of Camelot, did this, where in Dark Age of Camelot, if you were in a party with someone and you needed a quest drop, the quest would drop for everybody in a party.
Okay.
Whereas on a lot of earlier games, like if you needed a quest drop, only one person got the quest drop.
Right.
And World of Warcraft kind of did the same thing. We kind of on a larger scale. I mean, there's still a couple really kind of frustrating aspects of it where sometimes you'd have. I remember there's a griffin in vanilla where you had to have this kind of quest line to get a key to free this baby griffin.
In the hinterlands?
Yeah.
Oh God,
And,
I remember that
yeah,
quest.
yeah. And I did it with my group of friends, and but the game was just kind of completely stupid about understanding that hey, we're in a group
Tenno,
because we each had to get the key and we each had to go, and then when we got to the thing, only one person can unlock the cage at the time, and you had to wait.
It's like a
Tell them
5-minute thing.
Right, and then then we they respawn, and then the next person can open up, and it just felt it completely dropped you out of that kind of this any kind of immersion you might have had, and suddenly you were just starkly reminded nope, this is a game
additional
Where you're
Yeah, you-
encouraged
you
not
got
to
the-
have friends.
right. Well, and it just really what it really reinforced was anything you do in the world has no lasting effect.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 minutes, that guy that you just spent, all this time going through an instance and, finding with friends to release, is gonna be right back in his cage.
That's actually a really existential
Right,
moment if you think about it.
right. Where you have this, kind of, you
The-
have to you come face to face with the futility of your art.
Like, oh wow, that's actually you can write a philosophical essay about that.
Right.
The princess is in another castle. That
Right.
would be the name of my essay.
All right.
The princess is in another castle. Because I mean, same quandary. Everything you just went through to get to that castle was nullified because you went to the wrong castle.
Right. But in theory, you have this kind of concept of that this is the progression of the game. Eventually, you will get to the right castle, but there's no right way. There's no secret thing you can do to make sure that the little baby griffin is saved forever.
A procedural generated Mario game
That's a thing. Yes.
that you never get to the castle.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I'm sorry. The Baby Griffin's existential crisis. Yeah, yeah.
Right. He's got a little distracted there. Well, and so it not only was it for social design because I had to wait in line with literally wait in line with my friends to save this griffin, but it kind of was just a reminder of like the the futility of the game and as a whole. It kind of really dropped you out of that immersion that you're this hero saving this baby griffin.
And then it just stays locked in a cage.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
really sad.
Right. Well, I mean, in theory, this is what this is kind of what you could have phasing. Once you free the griffin, I'll never show up in the cage again.
Right.
But
Oh yeah. I did have another thought about the social aspect of the phasing.
Mm-hmm.
Where, say, now I don't think this was implemented in Warcraft, but I'm just thinking, why are you under my bed? I'm sorry.
Why not?
I just see this tail just sticking out from under my bed. Let me see if I can get a picture for it. I'll post it on my Discord later.
Well, maybe you should stop putting your sandwiches under there.
Hey, don't shame my sandwich storage unit. Say take the concept of phasing to the social extreme. Say you blacklist somebody. That could, send a trigger to the server saying, don't phase this person with this other person ever.
Right.
So,
right.
in sense, that blacklisting someone makes that person never exist in your reality.
Right.
Which,
That's that's potentially interesting.
Well, that's thinking awfully hard about it in a kind of obtuse, literalist sense.
have you met me before?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, one of the problems you run into with blocking is that somebody can talk shit about you without you knowing.
Right.
Standing right next to you, kind of saying horrible things about you. If you have them black.
Or you could be in a, was it that thing that happened relatively early in Overwatch when they implemented a way to blacklist people so you didn't have to play with them?
Mm-hmm.
If people were doing it to one of the top ranked Widow players, so he couldn't he'd almost never get matched with anyone, and then if he did get matched to anyone, they'd be lower, they'd probably be people who couldn't play against him, and they would blacklist him so no one would play with him.
Oh, I never heard that
right.
story.
Yeah. They had to alter the way the stuff worked to prevent people from basically pushing people out of the competitive, out of the plague pool because people didn't like to play against them.
Huh.
I never heard about that.
That's a scary thought.
That's a whole other topic I guess we could talk about was the abuse of social tools. Social abuse. We talked briefly about the kind of the toxic behavior of League of Legends players.
Mm-hmm.
But as we give people tools to kind of make sure they don't have to deal with people that annoy them. Then you also get kind of the counter of that, people abusing the tools so they don't have to play with people that they don't that are better than them, or somebody who basically just is being a just being petty, and blacklisting someone because I don't like face.
Well, that's why people make twinks. in PvP in competitive PvP games,
Right.
which kind of ruins the experience for people trying to learn to play or climb the ladder, because then they have to play against all
Top tiers.
the high rank
yeah.
people who, so they have someone to play against, or because they just like stomping people.
Right.
Oh yeah, the term in Overwatch is smurfing, if I remember correctly. I don't know why, but when someone twinks in Overwatch, they're called a smurf.
That's a term that's been used before.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is the first time I experienced that.
Yeah, I think Smurf is kind of an alternative to twink.
Okay.
The sexual connotations.
That might have more ties to things like MOBAs.
Like you running into a twink in Overwatch is just horrible. It's a horrible feeling. I mean, like in any game, but that's my personal experience is Overwatch. It just makes everything feel bad.
Mm.
Oh, Pumpkin says that Overwatch has a function to avoid as teammate feature.
Mm.
I guess for toxic people
Yeah.
that you don't want to play with.
But that would make it so that they could still be played as an opponent. So,
Mhm.
so that blocking a certain high ranking player won't work as well. They just won't be. You just won't be on the same team as them. Not gonna get carried by them.
I had a tangential topic pop up in my head and I can't remember it now. I hate when that happens.
Another interesting thing talking about like social game design, kind of like what I'm doing right now, is like, you know, basically kind of encourage you to do things that potentially hurt the rest of the group. Because I'm leveling up my amp right now, doing things with a mid-level amp.
Oh. Oh, I remember what I was gonna talk about. It kind of tunes into like social justice on games,
Come on.
especially competitive games. Did anyone hear about the Bully Hunter scandal?
I remember you telling me about that.
I remember telling you about it. I'm just wondering if anyone else had heard about it. 'Cause I was doing a little more reading into it more recently, because it's kind of interesting. So, basically what the Bully Hunters was, in theory, supposedly, allegedly, it was supposed to be an organization that would provide a service that in which people would be able to contact them when they felt like they were being bullied in a competitive online game. The example that was shown was specifically Counter-Strike. And they could like send them like an SMS message with like the session information theoretically. And the bully hunter would come into the game, find the bully, and smash their face in game. And like the bully hunter is supposed to be like an elite like girl gamer specifically. And like they did this whole like presentation on Twitch where like that you're at the bully hunter headquarters and you'd and they have like psychologists talking about the long-term harmful effects of online bullying, and the whole thing was supposed to be like a cyber like awareness for cyberbullying. Which, in theory that's a great thing, to make people aware of and to try to bring, into the focus light, because cyberbullying is a horrible thing that, nobody should have to deal with. Especially people that maybe are on the brink of self-harm, and, the bullying is just like that one thing that pushes them over. That should never happen. But what the bully hunters in particular were doing was all the footage that they showed where they supposedly had a bully hunter going into a game. It was all pre-recorded footage with voiceover of bullying, quote unquote, and they were presenting it as if it was a live video feed, which it was very obviously not. And what ended up being was that the entire thing, the entire presentation, it was all an indirect marketing scandal to sell exclusive merchandise with the Bully Hunter logo on it. That's what it was really all about, was selling merchandise with this poorly executed pretense of being about online bullying awareness.
Right.
That's a really convoluted scheme.
It is. It was, but the company that did it came out and admitted all of it once the scandal blew up on the internet. It was really weird and stupid.
I mean, it'd be kind of sleazy if they would take advantage of this whole thing. It was probably, probably got the idea after some kind of high-profile, bullying, suicide thing. Like somebody went, I can make money off that.
Right. And they got a big SJW Twitch streamer to be the host for it, and she took a huge hit from being involved with it, and it was... But it just reminded me of...
They're trying to kind of cash in on somebody else's reputation.
Right. And that just made me think of, well, this is someone trying to exploit social design of online culture. That's kind of what it made me think. How I got to bringing it up here now.
Right.
Where...
Yeah, well, I mean, the probably exploiting the feeling of like, well, companies don't do enough to police their games.
Right, when,
kind of this external...
everything, that they say that the bully hunters do, the tools to do that already is in-game. It's called muting and blocking.
Right.
But, whatever the company, that's trying to do this, is just like, oh, no, we'll provide a service and have an elite gamer come into the game. It's just, it doesn't make sense when you actually think about it.
Well, I mean, it kind of feeds on that kind of that desire for vengeance, blocking the person, whatever, most of them are going to care, but, if you actually make it, if you actually make a big deal about it,
make a big presentation about it, and
or like make a big, say, oh hey, we're gonna put people down, we're gonna show them the error of their ways.
And if anyone wants to see the videos about it, I'll post a link of a review about it in my Discord later tonight.
But yeah, you definitely kind of like seems to be kind of preying on
insecurities and fears.
Right. Or the vulnerable people, they say they want to kind of help the people that they're basically trying to exploit the people they say they want to help.
The longer you fight, the more successful we will be.
I guess there is an obligatory PSA now. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, it's kind of the Will Wheaton rule.
Like treat your fellow man, as you would want to be treated and all that. stuff.
Right.
Like, don't bully each other.
Yeah.
I have a see now I can highlight that little clip.
That clip and let people know that you're not in favor of bullying somehow.
I take that voice clip and then put it on top of like me like teabagging someone on Plenside too.
Classy.
Yeah. Oh my God! You're all the way under my bed now. What are you doing? She's like all the way under my bed now.
Well, stop beating your dog. Maybe it'll stop hiding from you.
I don't think I want people to think I beat my dog on the internet.
So when did you stop being a dog then?
I hate both of you.
Oh, that's awful.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. It's funny though. It's comedy. We're in the entertainment
I got
industry.
nothing. I have nothing. I was trying to think of some meme to reference. I got nothing. I'm tired. It's late. Leave me alone.
Hey, you're the one that invited us to this thing.
Apparently. Did I?
you have no one to blame but yourself.
I'm with my dog. Like I do with everything else.
Well, the dog wouldn't hide from you if you didn't blame it.
Nah, she got scared of something.
Aw.
That's the only reason why she goes under there.
Right, you said she usually does that, like during thunderstorms and whatnot.
Yeah, which I don't... Is it thunderstorming? Let's see here. It is not thunderstorming. It's also way too friggin' humid.
Move and strike. We have to win this.
Hey, isn't it nice having a neck roast and not struggling for oxygen?
I mean, there's only a couple times when we struggled with oxygen before, but
Yeah, it's just having the neck roast is like a guarantee.
right. The better thing for the necros is that it gives you more of the drop, so.
And we get more loot drops out of it too. So.
Yep.
So, does anyone in the chat have any questions, anything they want to hear us discuss, or want to ask a game developer about games? You know, feel free to ask.
Yeah. Happy to explain things if I can.
Why do game developers do stupid things? What stupid things do you think they do?
Go on podcasts with people that beat their dogs.
Hey. I don't work for
You
EA.
stopped. You never told me when you stopped, so I'm just gonna assume you keep on doing it.
Why is WildStar ending on Pumpkin's birthday? Because they hate you.
Because you are obviously Death, the Destroyer of MMOs. Congratulations, you've been promoted.
There you go.
You're
Murder
no longer
Pumpkin.
Just an annoyance. You're now a Destroyer.
You are now Murder Pumpkin.
Look what our Tenno
I am a little sad that WildStar's ending though. I had fun when I played it.
I just view it as having dodged a bullet.
Why?
Well, I didn't waste any time on it. Instead, I wasted time on other things.
Right.
They're sure to be solid investments in my future.
Well, if history's shown anything, like spending time on on an online Final Fantasy game, like you'll get your time's worth of it. 11's still
Right.
running. I mean,
Well, I think it's the basic question of getting do you get enough entertainment? Because I mean, people.
We
people
heading
do-
to extraction.
Do you want to?
we can.
You said 30 minutes, so it's 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And extraction. Wrap things up.
I think they're planning on making a mobile version of Final Fantasy 11 too.
All right.
Well, they said that, but it's nothing's.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
haven't.
think anything's materialized.
Yeah, I haven't heard
so
anything about
I
it
don't know
in a
what
long
happened
time.
with that.
Because, like, from my understanding, they're gonna make like an Exodus type style of Final Fantasy 11 to immortalize the story of it. But I haven't heard anything about that in a couple of years. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I think we're gonna wrap it up here though. I think we've expended as much brain power on socializers as we can for tonight. So feel free to check out Sai's blog. I'll put another link on it in the chat. And I have links set up now for my Twitter where I always broadcast. Let's see if it works. It didn't work. Really? That didn't work? Edit. Oh. Oops. Let's try now. Did that fix it? Nope. Fuck. Let's try now.
Too strong.
I'm still learning how this particular bot works. There we go. I figured it out. Hold on. I gotta fix everything now. Oops. Back to commands. I'm sorry. Okay. So I archive everything on my YouTube channel if you want to follow that. And I think that was everything. And I have a Discord if you want to hang out there. I'll post links for things there. Thanks. Otherwise, thanks everyone for watching. I'm gonna find someone to raid if you don't mind hanging around for that. I love sharing a little love with other streamers that I hang out with. So I'm gonna find someone to stream with. Check out Sai's blog. Check out whatever Mitter wants to plug. Mitter has a
What?
dog. Sorry, go ahead.
What? I don't have anything.
You have a dog, so.
Well, yeah, I guess Yeah, I think that's a dog.
Or or a chupacabra.
Maybe a chupacabra. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes.
What was I doing? I was gonna rate someone. Who am I rating? Oh, well, raid Raya. He's playing some Overwatch. Oops. Oops. I took the command in his chat, not... Oh god, I can't even type his freaking name. Sorry. Let's try this again. So I'll see you all next week. I might do a stream around noon tomorrow. Something a little Halloweeny. I'm not sure. No promises. We'll see what happens. But we'll see you next Tuesday.